The ice cracked like gunfire beneath Ethan Cole's boots as he sprinted across the frozen lake, his breath forming desperate clouds in the Wyoming night. Two small heads bobbed in the black water where the ice had given way. Twin girls, maybe 7 years old, their lips already turning blue. In that split second before diving in, Ethan knew this rescue would change everything. What he didn't know was that saving these mysterious twins would bring 10 black SUVs to his door and force him to stand between a terrified mother and the dangerous world she'd fled. Stay with me to discover how one act of courage transformed a struggling single father into the unlikely protector of a family on the run. Drop a comment about where you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. The wind howled through the gaps in the weathered farmhouse siding, a mournful sound that had become the soundtrack to Ethan Cole's evenings. He stood at the stove, wooden spoon in hand, stirring what he generously called stew, but what was really just water, 2 carrots, an onion, and whatever meat had been marked down at Morrison's grocery that morning. The kitchen, once filled with his late wife Sarah's laughter and the aroma of her famous pot roast, now held only the quiet concentration of a man trying to make something from almost nothing. "Dad!" Lucas burst through the door, letting in a blast of Arctic air that made the candle flames dance. Snow clung to his worn winter coat, the one Ethan had found at the church donation box last month, 2 sizes too big, but better than nothing. "Dad, you gotta come see this!" Ethan turned from the stove, noting his 12-year-old son's wide eyes and the way his chest heaved from running. "Slow down, buddy." "What's wrong?" There's footprints," Lucas gasped, pulling off his wool hat. His sandy hair, so like his mother's, stuck up in all directions. "Little ones, going out onto Crystal Lake." "But Dad?" He paused, swallowing hard. "There ain't none coming back." The wooden spoon clattered against the floor. Ethan was already reaching for his coat. The old firefighter instincts that had kept him alive through 15 years of service kicking in before his conscious mind could process the words. "Show me. Now." They ran through the snow, their boots crunching in rhythm. The December night was brutal, the kind of cold that turned your breath to ice crystals before it left your lips. Wyoming winters didn't forgive, and they sure as hell didn't give second chances. The moon hung full and bright above them, casting long shadows across the pristine white landscape that stretched toward Crystal Lake. "There!" Lucas pointed toward the lake's edge, where a line of small footprints, 2 sets side by side, led from the tree line onto the ice. Ethan dropped to one knee, examining them. Children's boots, size maybe 12 or 13 in kids. The stride length suggested they were young, maybe 6 or 7 years old. The prints were fresh, no more than an hour old, judging by the minimal snowdrift inside them. "Lucas, run back to the house. Call 911. Tell them—" A sound cut through the night. Faint, muffled, but unmistakable. A cry. A child's cry. Ethan's head snapped toward the center of the lake. In the moonlight, about 200 yards out, he could see it, a dark patch where the ice had given way. His blood turned colder than the wind cutting through his jacket. "Dad, the ice ain't thick enough yet. Mr. Morrison said—" "I know what he said." Ethan was already moving, his mind calculating weight distribution, distance, time. Every second mattered now. "Lucas, the rope in the truck bed. Get it, then call 911. But Ethan wasn't waiting. He dropped to his belly and began crawling across the ice, distributing his weight as evenly as possible. The ice groaned beneath him, a sound like the earth itself protesting. 20 yards. 50. 100. The cries were clearer now, not one child, but 2. Terror and cold made their voices high and thin. At 150 yards he heard it, the crack that every winter resident feared. Spiderweb fractures appeared beneath his chest, spreading outward like lightning in slow motion. But he could see them now. 2 small heads bobbing in the black water, tiny hands clawing desperately at the ice edge that kept breaking away under their weight. "Hold on!" Ethan shouted. "I'm coming!" The girls, twins, he could see now, identical faces twisted in panic, tried to respond but only managed choked gasps. Their lips were purple, their movements growing sluggish. Hypothermia was setting in fast. The ice beneath Ethan gave way. The shock of the water hit him like a sledgehammer to the chest. Every muscle seized, every nerve screamed. The cold was beyond description. It was absence itself, the void where warmth should be. But Ethan had trained for this years ago, during his firefighter days. Cold water rescue drills in January, his chief barking instructions while they practiced in the reservoir. He forced his body to move, kicking hard toward the girls. One had slipped under. He could see her pale face beneath the surface, eyes closed, blonde hair floating like seaweed. The other twin was barely holding on, her fingers white-knuckled on a piece of ice that was crumbling. Ethan dove. The underwater world was silent and dark, lit only by shafts of moonlight penetrating the surface. His hands found the submerged girl's coat, and he pulled her up, breaking the surface with a gasp that filled his lungs with knife-sharp air. The conscious twin reached for her sister, sobbing. "I've got you," Ethan said through chattering teeth, though he wasn't sure if he was reassuring them or himself. "Both of you, we're getting out, but how?" The ice edge crumbled every time he tried to push the girls up. His legs were going numb, his movements becoming clumsy. They had maybe minutes before— "Dad!" Lucas's voice carried across the ice. The boy had tied one end of the rope to the truck's bumper and was sliding the other end across the ice, staying low, just like Ethan had taught him during their fishing trips. "Good boy," Ethan managed to shout. He grabbed the rope with one hand while keeping both girls pressed against his chest with the other. "Pull! Drive the truck backward!" The sound of the engine roaring to life was the most beautiful thing Ethan had ever heard. The rope went taut, and slowly, agonizingly, they began moving toward solid ice. Ethan kicked with what strength remained, using his body as a shield between the girls and the sharp ice edges. When they finally reached solid ground, Ethan's body was shaking so violently he could barely stand. Lucas was there with blankets from the truck, tears streaming down his face as he helped wrap the girls. One twin, the one who'd been underwater, wasn't moving, her skin a terrifying shade of blue. "Is she?" Lucas's voice broke. Ethan laid her on the blanket, tilting her head back. No breath, no pulse that he could feel with his numb fingers. He started CPR, compressions he could do in his sleep, counting in his head. 1, 2, 3, 28, 29, 30. 2 rescue breaths. Her lips were like ice against his. "Come on, sweetheart," he muttered. "Come on." The other twin watched with huge green eyes, shivering violently despite the blankets. "Sophie," she whispered. "Her name's Sophie." "I'm Clara, please help her." Ethan continued compressions. In the distance, sirens wailed. Lucas must have gotten through to 911, but they were at least 10 minutes out on these rural roads. Sophie needed help now. Another round, another. Ethan's frozen muscles screamed, but he didn't stop. Sarah wouldn't have stopped. Sarah would have— Sophie coughed. Water erupted from her lungs and she gasped, eyes flying open in panic. Ethan quickly turned her on her side as she vomited lake water onto the snow. "That's it," he said softly, rubbing her back. "Get it all out. You're okay now. You're safe." Claire crawled to her sister despite Ethan's attempts to keep her still. The twins clung to each other, sobbing and shivering. They were speaking, but not in English. German, maybe? Or Dutch? Ethan couldn't tell. "Dad." Lucas stood beside him, and Ethan realized his son had draped his own coat over his father's shoulders. When had the boy become so grown up? "You're shaking real bad." "I'm okay, buddy." But he wasn't. The adrenaline was wearing off and the cold was setting in deep. His hands were numb, his feet like blocks of ice. "Help me get them to the truck. We need heat." They managed to get everyone into the cab, cranking the heater to maximum. The twins huddled together in the middle, their shivers gradually subsiding as warmth seeped back into their small bodies. In the overhead light, Ethan could see them more clearly. Identical blonde hair, those striking green eyes, delicate features that spoke of good breeding. Their coats, while soaked, were clearly expensive, reeled down, designer labels. "What were you doing out there?" Ethan asked gently, when their shivering had calmed enough for speech. The twins exchanged glances, a whole conversation in a look that only identical siblings could manage. "We were following the lights," Clara said finally, her English heavily accented. "The pretty lights on the ice. Mama said, Mama said to stay in the trees, but the lights were so beautiful. Where's your mama? Lucas asked. Both girls' eyes filled with tears. She said to wait, Sophie whispered, her voice hoarse from her ordeal. She said she'd come back. But it's been so long, and we were cold and hungry, and then we saw the lights. The ambulance arrived in a chaos of red and blue lights, paramedics taking over with professional efficiency. They wanted to take Ethan too. Hypothermia was nothing to mess with, but he waved them off. I'm fine. Just take care of the girls. Sir, you were in that water for... I said I'm fine. His tone brooked no argument, the voice of a man who'd given orders in burning buildings and expected them to be obeyed. The paramedic, barely older than 20, backed off. At least let us check you out at the hospital. You can drive yourself if you insist, but we'll follow you, Ethan conceded. He needed to know the girls were okay, needed to find out who they were and why they'd been alone in the woods in December. The drive to Madison County General took 30 minutes on the icy roads. Lucas sat quietly, still processing what he'd witnessed. Finally, he spoke. Mom would have been proud of you. Ethan's throat tightened. She would have been proud of you too. That rope trick, that was smart thinking. I remembered what you taught me about ice rescue. From when we watched that documentary about the fire department. They'd watched it together last winter, curled on the couch with hot chocolate, Sarah's empty chair a constant reminder of her absence. She'd been gone 2 years now. Cancer, the kind that didn't care that she was only 35, that she had a son to raise, a husband who needed her. At the hospital, the emergency room was its usual controlled chaos. The twins had been taken to pediatric emergency, and a nurse, Martha, according to her badge, approached Ethan. You the one who pulled them out? Yeah. She looked him up and down, noting his still damp clothes and the way he was trying to hide his shivers. Heroes always think they're invincible. Exam room 3. Now. I need to know about the girls. They're stable. Hypothermic, but responding well to treatment. No signs of serious complications. Now, room 3 before I call security to escort you. Martha reminded him of Sarah's mother, all 5 feet of her radiating authority that had nothing to do with size and everything to do with presence. Ethan went to room 3. The doctor who examined him was thorough and disapproving. You're lucky, she said, checking his core temperature for the 3rd time. A few more minutes in that water, and we'd be having a very different conversation. As it is, you're looking at mild hypothermia and possibly some frostbite on your toes. I've had worse. Firefighter? Was, until 2 years ago. She nodded, understanding in her eyes. Small town, everyone knew everyone's story. Well, ex-firefighter Cole, you need to warm up gradually. We'll keep you for observation for a few hours. Your son can stay with you. Lucas had fallen asleep in the chair by the time Dr. Patricia Hendricks from Child Services arrived. She was a tall woman with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, carrying herself with the careful compassion of someone who'd seen too much but still cared. Mr. Cole? I wanted to thank you personally. Those girls wouldn't have survived another 5 minutes in that water. Anyone would have done the same. No, she said softly. They wouldn't have. Most people would have waited for the professionals. You knew you might not come back up from that water, didn't you? Ethan shrugged. He hadn't thought about it in those terms, but yeah, he'd known the risks. Couldn't just watch them die. The girls are asking for you. They won't settle down. Keep crying for the man who saved us. Would you mind? Ethan looked at Lucas, still sleeping. Martha appeared as if summoned. I'll watch him, she said. Go see those babies. The pediatric ward was painted in bright, cheerful colors that seemed almost obscene at 3 a.m. The twins were in the same room, 2 beds pushed close together so they could hold hands across the gap. They were hooked to monitors and IVs, warming blankets wrapped around them, but their eyes were alert. You came, Clara said, trying to sit up. Easy there, Ethan said, pulling a chair between their beds. You need to rest. Are you okay? Sophie asked, her voice still raspy. You were in the cold water, too. I'm tough, Ethan said with a smile. Like you two. That was very brave, holding on like you did. We were scared, Clara admitted. Being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means doing what you need to do even when you are scared. Dr. Hendricks cleared her throat gently. Girls, can you tell us your last name? We need to contact your family. The twins exchanged that look again. Monroe, Sophie finally whispered. Sophie and Clara Monroe. And your mother's name? Elena Monroe. Dr. Hendricks made notes. Do you know where she is? Both girls shook their heads, tears starting again. She said to hide, Clara said. She said someone bad was coming, and we had to hide in the trees until she came back. But that was yesterday morning, and... Shh, Ethan said, instinctively reaching out to smooth Clara's hair back. It's okay. We'll find her. What if the bad people found her? Sophie asked, voicing the fear that had clearly been plaguing them both. Then we'll help her, Ethan said firmly. That's what we do here. We help people. Dr. Hendricks stepped out to make phone calls, leaving Ethan with the twins. They peppered him with questions about Lucas, about the lake, about his house. They were bright, articulate children, their English improving by the minute as they became more comfortable. Do you have a wife? Clara asked innocently. No, not anymore. Did she leave? Sophie asked with the blunt curiosity of children. She died 2 years ago. Our papa died too, Clara said softly. 6 months ago. Mama cried all the time after that. Then Uncle Marcus came and Mama got scared. Uncle Marcus isn't really our uncle, Sophie added. He's Papa's brother. He wants to take us away from Mama. Ethan filed this information away. A custody dispute, maybe? But that wouldn't explain why Elena would abandon her daughters in the woods in winter. Dr. Hendricks returned, her expression troubled. Mr. Cole, could I speak with you privately? In the hallway, she kept her voice low. There's no missing persons report for an Elena Monroe or her daughters. I've checked state and federal databases. Either they haven't been reported missing yet, or they're running from something that makes going to the authorities impossible, Ethan finished. That was my thought, too. The girls show no signs of abuse. They're well-nourished, well-cared for. Their clothes are expensive, very expensive. But something scared their mother enough to hide them in the woods in December. What happens now? Protocol says they go into emergency foster care until we can locate the mother or next of kin. But, she hesitated. They're traumatized, and they've clearly bonded with you. I don't suppose you'd consider emergency placement, just for a few days while we sort this out? You're already certified from when you and Sarah were considering fostering. Ethan thought about the empty bedrooms in the farmhouse, the ones he and Sarah had hoped to fill with children. They'd started the certification process just before her diagnosis, completing it even after they knew she was dying because she'd insisted. We might not get our babies, she'd said, but maybe someday you can help someone else's. I'd need to talk to Lucas. Of course. Ethan returned to find his son awake, sitting with the twins and showing them videos on his phone. The 3 children looked up as he entered. Dad, they've never seen Star Wars, Lucas said, scandalized. Can they come watch it at our house when they're better? Sometimes, Ethan thought, kids made decisions simple. Dr. Hendricks, he said. We'll take them. Emergency placement. The paperwork took 2 hours. By the time they were done, the sun was rising, painting the snow-covered mountains pink and gold. The twins were discharged with strict instructions for care and follow-up appointments. They stood in the hospital entrance, looking small and lost in their hospital-issued sweatshirts that hung to their knees. We don't have anything, Clara said quietly. Our suitcases are in the trees, Sophie added. Mama hid them too. We'll look for them later, Ethan promised. Right now, let's get you somewhere warm and get some food in you. The drive home was quiet. The twins sat in the back with Lucas, who'd given them his tablet to share. Their heads bent together over some game, occasionally giggling. The resilience of children never ceased to amaze Ethan. The farmhouse looked different in the morning light, shabbier maybe, more worn. Ethan saw it through the twins' eyes, the peeling paint, the sagging porch, the duct tape holding one window together. But when they walked in, Sophie said, It's warm. And Clara added, It smells nice. And Ethan realized they weren't seeing the poverty. They were seeing safety. "Are you hungry?" he asked. "Starving," all three children said in unison, then laughed at the synchronization. Ethan made pancakes, the one thing he could cook that actually tasted good. The twins ate like they hadn't seen food in days, which might have been close to the truth. Between bites, they told stories about their house in Denver, a mansion from the sound of it, about their father, a real estate developer, about their mother, who painted and played piano. "Mama speaks 5 languages," Clara said proudly. "She taught us German and French and English," Sophie added, "and we're learning Spanish." "Your mom sounds amazing," Lucas said. "I bet she's looking for you right now." The twins' faces fell. "What if she can't find us?" Clara whispered. "Then we'll find her," Ethan said firmly. "I promise." After breakfast, he set the twins up in the guest room, the one that had been meant for Sarah's parents to stay in when the baby came, back when they'd thought there would be a baby. The room was dusty but clean, with 2 twin beds that seemed like Providence now. "You can rest here," he said. "Lucas will lend you some of his old clothes until we can get your things." "Mr. Ethan?" Sophie said as he turned to leave. "Thank you for saving us." "And for the pancakes," Clara added, which made them all laugh. While the children rested, Ethan called his former chief, Bill Morrison, the same Morrison who owned the grocery store now, retirement not suiting him any better than it suited most firefighters. "Bill, I need a favor. Can you get some guys to help me search the woods near Crystal Lake? I'm looking for suitcases and maybe signs of where these kids' mother went." "Already on it," Bill said. "News travels fast. Half the town wants to help. We'll meet you at the lake in an hour." The search party consisted of 15 people, firefighters, police officers, neighbors. They spread out through the woods, calling for Elena Monroe, looking for any signs. It was Ethan who found the suitcases, hidden beneath a fallen log and covered with branches. 2 small pink rollers and a larger black one. There was also a purse, expensive leather, containing a wallet with Elena Monroe's driver's license. She was beautiful, elegant features, dark hair, the same green eyes as her daughters. The address was in Denver, as the girls had said. There was also close to $3,000 in cash and a cell phone, turned off. "Ethan," called Tom Richards, one of the police officers. "You need to see this." Tom was standing by a tree about 50 yards away. There were scratches in the bark, fresh ones, and what looked like blood on the snow, though not much. Signs of a struggle maybe, but not a violent one. "Could be she fell," Tom said, but his tone suggested he didn't believe it. Or someone took her." Ethan stared at the disturbed snow, trying to read the story it told. "But why leave the kids? Maybe she didn't have them with her when whoever it was found her. Maybe hiding them saved their lives. They searched until dark but found nothing else. No body, thank God. But no Elena either." The twins took the news bravely, clutching their rescued suitcases. "At least we have Bunny," Clara said, pulling out a well-loved stuffed rabbit. "And Mr. Whiskers," Sophie added, holding up a stuffed cat. That night, Ethan tucked them in, a gesture so natural it hurt, reminding him of all the children he'd never get to tuck in with Sarah. The twins insisted on keeping the door open and the hall light on. "Mr. Ethan," Clara called as he was leaving, "what if Mama never comes back?" Ethan sat on the edge of her bed. "Then you'll stay here with us until we figure things out. You're safe here. I promise." "You keep your promises, don't you?" Sophie observed. "You promised to find us in the water, and you did. You promised to find our suitcases, and you did. I try to." "Then promise Mama will be okay," Clara said. Ethan hesitated. He'd learned never to make promises he couldn't keep, but looking at their hopeful faces, he couldn't help himself. "I promise we'll do everything we can to find her and make sure she's okay." It seemed to satisfy them. They settled down, whispering to each other in German, a comfort to have each other in this strange new place. Downstairs, Lucas was doing homework at the kitchen table. "They're nice," he said. "Scared, but nice." "Yeah, they are." "Dad? What if their mom really doesn't come back?" Ethan sat down across from his son. "I don't know, buddy." "I guess we'd figure it out." Could they stay? I mean, permanently?" "That's not really how it works." They have family somewhere. That uncle they mentioned, grandparents maybe. But what if their family are the bad people their mom was running from? It was a good question, one Ethan didn't have an answer for. He was saved from trying by a knock at the door, unusual for 9 o'clock at night in rural Wyoming. He opened it to find Dr. Hendricks standing there with a man in an expensive suit despite the cold. "Mr. Cole, this is James Patterson from Patterson and Associates in Denver. He says he represents the Monroe family." The man stepped forward, extending a business card with one hand and a court document with the other. "Mr. Cole, I'm here regarding Sophie and Clara Monroe. Their uncle, Marcus Monroe, has been granted temporary custody. I'm here to collect them." "It's 9 at night," Ethan said, not moving from the doorway. "They're sleeping. Nevertheless, this is a court order. The girls need to come with me immediately." Ethan looked at the document. It looked official enough, but something felt wrong, very wrong. "How did you even know they were here?" "Hospital records. As soon as they were admitted, we were notified. The family has been terribly worried. So worried they didn't file a missing persons report." Patterson's smile was cold. "Family matters are often handled privately, Mr. Cole. Now, the girls, please." "No." "Excuse me?" "I said no. You want to take 2 traumatized children in the middle of the night? Come back tomorrow with the police and a social worker. Dr. Hendricks, these girls are in my emergency custody, correct?" "That's correct," she said, looking uncomfortable but standing her ground. "Then Mr. Patterson can return during business hours, following proper procedure." Ethan started to close the door. Patterson stuck his foot in the gap. "Mr. Cole, you don't want to make an enemy of the Monroe family. They're very powerful, very connected. Is that a threat?" "It's a fact." Ethan looked the man dead in the eyes. "Mister, I've run into burning buildings. I've pulled people out of car wrecks. Tonight I jumped into a frozen lake to save those little girls. You think I'm scared of a man in a suit?" He pushed Patterson's foot back with his own and closed the door, locking it. Through the window he could see Patterson on his phone, gesturing angrily. Dr. Hendricks stayed behind after the lawyer left. "That was brave," she said. "Possibly stupid, but brave. Those girls are terrified of their uncle. Their mother hid them in the woods rather than let him have them. No way am I handing them over in the middle of the night." "I'll file an emergency injunction first thing in the morning," she promised. "But Ethan, if they have money and lawyers, then we'll fight them with everything we've got." After she left, Ethan checked on the twins. They were awake, huddled together in one bed. "We heard voices," Sophie whispered. "Was it Uncle Marcus?" Claire asked, fear evident in her voice. "No, sweethearts. Just someone who works for him. And I sent him away." "But he'll come back," Sophie said with certainty. "Maybe. But you're safe here. Lucas and I won't let anyone take you if you don't want to go." "Papa used to say that too," Clara said softly. "But then he died, and Uncle Marcus said we belonged with him now. He said Mama wasn't really family, not by blood. He said he'd send her back to Germany," Sophie added, "without us." The picture was becoming clearer. A custody battle complicated by immigration status, perhaps. Elena was foreign. The girls were American citizens through their father. If Marcus Monroe had money and influence. "Is your mom from Germany?" Ethan asked gently. "Munich," Clara confirmed. "She came here for university and met Papa." "She's an artist," Sophie said proudly. "Her paintings are in galleries." "Girls, this is important. Why were you and your mom in Wyoming? This is pretty far from Denver." The twins looked at each other. Finally, Clara spoke. "Mama has a friend here, from art school, Anna Peterson. She has a cabin near the lake, but when we got there yesterday, it was empty, locked up. So Mama said we'd wait in the woods until Anna came home." Anna Peterson. Ethan knew that name. She taught art at the high school, but she'd been in Europe for the holidays. Her cabin was indeed near Crystal Lake. "Uncle Marcus found us in Denver," Sophie continued. "He had men watching our house. Mama packed us up in the middle of the night. She said we were going on an adventure, but we knew she was scared." "She was crying while she drove," Claire added. "She tried to hide it, but we knew." Ethan's heart ached for them, for all of them, including Elena, wherever she was. "Try to sleep," he said. Tomorrow we'll go talk to the sheriff, see if he can help us find your mom." "You won't let Uncle Marcus take us?" Sophie asked. "Not if you don't want to go with him." "We don't," both girls said emphatically. Ethan left their door open and went to his own room, though he knew he wouldn't sleep. He sat by the window instead, watching the road, his old service rifle within reach. He'd never had to use it for anything but hunting, but tonight felt different. Around midnight, headlights appeared on the road. Then more. And more. Ethan counted 10 vehicles, SUVs, all black, all moving in convoy. They slowed as they passed the farmhouse but didn't stop, continuing down the road toward the lake. He grabbed his phone and called Tom Richards. "Tom, we've got a situation." 10 black SUVs just headed toward Crystal Lake. "I'm on it," Tom said immediately. "I'll get units out there." But Ethan had a sick feeling it was already too late for whoever those SUVs were after. He checked on all 3 children, still sleeping, then returned to his vigil at the window. The SUVs returned an hour later, moving faster this time, not even slowing as they passed. Whatever they'd come for, they'd either found it or given up. The next morning brought answers, none of them good. Anna Peterson's cabin had been ransacked. Tom called Ethan with the news. "Looks like someone was searching for something, or someone. No sign of violence, but the place is torn apart." "Any sign of Elena Monroe?" "No, but Ethan, there's something else. We ran the plates on those SUVs through a friend at the state police. They're registered to Monarch Security, a private firm out of Denver. And guess who their biggest client is? Marcus Monroe." "Bingo. The man owns half of downtown Denver, apparently. Real estate empire worth hundreds of millions. His brother Robert, the twins' father, died 6 months ago in a car accident. Single vehicle, ran off the road. Suspicious? Investigation said no, but when you have that much money, investigations can say whatever you want them to." Ethan gripped the phone tighter. "What about Elena?" "German citizen, here on a green card through her marriage, with Robert dead and Marcus having the family lawyers." Tom trailed off, but the implication was clear. Elena was vulnerable, and she knew it. That day passed in a strange domesticity. Ethan took all 3 kids to Walmart for clothes and supplies. The twins needed everything, and Lucas had outgrown half his wardrobe. The girls were delighted by simple things, choosing their own toothbrushes, picking out notebooks for drawing, selecting cereals. "Papa never let us go shopping," Claire explained. "He said stores weren't safe for Monroe children." "Someone might take us for ransom," Sophie added matter-of-factly, as if kidnapping was just another childhood hazard like skinned knees. The casualness of it broke Ethan's heart a little more. These girls had grown up in a golden cage, and now they were free but lost, their mother missing, their uncle circling like a vulture. That evening, while the kids were playing a board game Lucas had dug out of the closet, Ethan heard it, a sound outside, barely audible over their laughter. Footsteps on the porch. He moved quietly to the door, peering through the peephole. A figure stood there, small, huddled in on itself, swaying slightly. As he watched, the figure collapsed. Ethan yanked the door open to find a woman crumpled on his porch. Dark hair matted with snow and what looked like blood. Expensive clothes, torn and dirty, face pale as death. "Please," she whispered, green eyes, so like the twins, focusing on him with difficulty. "My daughters, Sophie and Clara, are they—" "Elena?" Ethan dropped to his knees beside her. "Elena Monroe? They said, in town, a man saved them, from the lake." She was shivering violently, her words slurred from cold and exhaustion. "They're here. They're safe. You're safe now, too." "No." She grabbed his shirt with surprising strength. "Not safe. He's coming. Marcus, he killed Robert. He'll kill me and take them." "Mama?" The small voice came from behind Ethan. Both twins stood in the doorway, eyes wide with shock and joy. "My babies," Elena breathed. Then her eyes rolled back and she went limp. "Lucas, call 911, Ethan ordered, scooping Elena up. She weighed almost nothing, felt like a bird in his arms. "Tell them we need an ambulance now." He carried her inside, laying her on the couch. The twins were crying, patting their mother's face, calling to her in German. Elena's pulse was weak but steady, her breathing shallow. Now that he could see her in the light, there were bruises on her face, her wrists. Someone had hurt her, kept her somewhere. "What's wrong with Mama?" Sophie sobbed. "She's sick," Ethan said carefully. "But she's going to be okay. The doctors will help her." But even as he said it, watching Elena's still form, feeling the twins clutch at him for comfort, he wondered what they'd all been pulled into. Outside, through the swirling snow, he could swear he saw headlights in the distance, watching, waiting. The ambulance arrived in a blaze of sirens, but Elena had already started to stir. Her eyes flickered open as the paramedics were checking her vitals, and the first thing she did was reach for her daughters. "Real?" she whispered. "Not dream?" "We're real, Mama," Clara assured her, clutching her mother's hand. "The nice man saved us from the lake," Sophie added. "And now you're here." Elena's gaze found Ethan. "You saved them?" "They saved themselves by being brave," Ethan said. "I just helped a little." The paramedics wanted to transport Elena immediately, but she resisted. "No hospital. He'll find me. He has people everywhere." "Ma'am, you need medical attention," the lead paramedic insisted. "You're hypothermic, dehydrated, and these injuries need documentation." "Documentation for what?" Elena laughed bitterly. "The police he owns? The judges he plays golf with?" She tried to sit up, swayed. "I can't. My girls—" "I'll come with you," Ethan said suddenly. "Lucas, you okay to stay here with Mrs. Patterson from next door?" Lucas nodded, understanding the seriousness of the situation. The twins looked torn between staying and going with their mother. "You stay here," Elena told them weakly. "Stay with—" She looked at Ethan questioningly. Ethan Cole." "Stay with Mr. Cole. Be good. I'll be back soon." The girls protested, but Ethan knelt beside them. "Your mom needs doctors to help her get strong again. We'll bring her right back, okay? Lucas will take care of you." Somehow, whether it was exhaustion or trust, they agreed. The ride to the hospital was tense. Elena kept fading in and out of consciousness, mumbling in German. When they arrived, Ethan insisted on staying with her, claiming to be family when questioned. The lie came easily. After everything, she felt like family, or at least like someone under his protection. While Elena was being examined, Ethan called Tom Richards again. "We found Elena Monroe. She's in bad shape. Someone held her, hurt her. She's terrified of Marcus Monroe." "I'll come take her statement." "Tom, she says Marcus killed her husband. Says he owns judges and police in Denver." There was a long pause. "That's a serious accusation." "I know, but looking at her, at how scared those girls are, I believe her." Dr. Hendricks arrived while Elena was getting x-rays. "This is becoming quite the situation, Mr. Cole." "Tell me about it." "I've filed that injunction. Emergency hearing is tomorrow morning. Judge Harrison, she's good people, can't be bought. But Marcus Monroe has hired Steinberg and Associates. They're formidable. We need a lawyer." "Already on it." "Mary Chen from Legal Aid. She's young but fierce, pro bono." When Elena was finally settled in a room, she was more coherent. The IV fluids and warmth had brought color back to her face, though the bruises stood out starkly against her pale skin. "Tell me what happened," Ethan said gently. Elena looked at him for a long moment. "Why do you care? You don't know us. Your daughters were dying in that lake. I pulled them out. That makes them mine to protect now, at least until you're strong enough to do it yourself." Tears rolled down her cheeks. "I thought I was strong enough. I thought I could run, hide, keep them safe. But Marcus, he found us anyway. Start from the beginning." And she did. Her voice was soft, accented, but clear. She'd met Robert Monroe at art school. She was studying on a student visa. He was taking classes for fun. A rich boy playing at being bohemian. They'd fallen in love against his family's wishes. Marcus had always hated her, called her a gold digger, a foreign opportunist. "But Robert loved me," she said firmly, "and I loved him. We were happy. The girls were everything to him. But Robert had started questioning things in the months before his death. Money missing from the family trust. Deals that didn't make sense. properties bought and sold at massive losses that somehow benefited Marcus. Robert was going to confront him. They argued the night before. She swallowed hard. The night before the accident. Marcus said Robert was drunk, but Robert hadn't been drinking. He'd been sober for 3 years. After Robert's death, Marcus had immediately moved to take control of everything, the money, the properties, the girls. He said I wasn't really family. Said the girls needed to be raised by blood, by real Monroes. He had papers, lawyers, threats. He said he'd have me deported, that I'd never see my daughters again. So she'd run. Packed what she could, took cash Robert had hidden for emergencies, and fled to the only person she thought could help, Anna Peterson, her old friend from art school. But Anna wasn't there. And then Marcus's men found me. I hid the girls first, told them to wait, that I'd come back. But they grabbed me before I could get away. Where did they take you? Some cabin, not far from the lake. They weren't supposed to hurt me, I think. Just scare me. Make me sign papers giving Marcus custody. But I refused and one of them got rough, and then they got a call. What kind of call? That the girls were missing, that they'd been pulled from the lake. The men panicked, started arguing. I ran when they were distracted. I've been walking for, I don't know, hours, days. I just knew I had to find them. Elena, Ethan said carefully, we need to document this. File police reports, build a case. You don't understand how powerful he is, how connected. Maybe not in Denver, but this is Wyoming. We do things different here. Before Elena could respond, the door opened. Not a nurse or doctor, but a man in an expensive suit. Marcus Monroe looked like an older, harder version of the man in the family photos Elena had shown him on her phone. Elena, he said smoothly, you've caused quite a bit of trouble. Ethan stood, putting himself between Marcus and the bed. You need to leave. Marcus's eyes flicked to him dismissively. And you are? The man who saved your nieces from drowning. The man who's been caring for them while their mother was being held against her will. The man who's about to call security if you don't leave. Tough talk from a nobody in nowhere, Wyoming. Marcus pulled out papers. I have legal documents. Elena is mentally unstable, a danger to the children. She's to be remanded for psychiatric evaluation immediately. Those papers aren't worth anything here, Tom Richards said from the doorway, hand resting on his service weapon. Mrs. Monroe hasn't been charged with anything. She's the victim of a kidnapping, which I'm investigating. Now, Mr. Monroe, I suggest you leave before I arrest you for witness intimidation. Marcus's face flushed. You have no idea who you're dealing with. Sure I do, Tom said easily. A rich man who thinks money makes him untouchable. But see, this is my town, my jurisdiction. And in my town, we don't take kindly to men who hurt women and children. For a moment, the room was electric with tension. Then Marcus smiled, cold and sharp. This isn't over. No, Elena said suddenly, struggling to sit up. It's not. Because I'm going to tell everyone what you did. To Robert. To me. All of it. No one will believe you. Maybe. Maybe not. But they'll wonder, won't they? And you hate people wondering about you, Marcus. You hate anything that threatens the Monroe reputation. Marcus left without another word, but the threat lingered in the air like smoke. That night, Ethan brought Elena home. She was weak but determined, crying as she held her daughters. They'd set her up in the master bedroom. Ethan had been sleeping on the couch anyway, the bed too full of memories. I can't impose, Elena protested. You're not. You're healing. The girls need you here, safe. Over the next few days, they fell into a routine. Elena was recovering slowly, spending most of her time with the girls, reading to them, holding them. She'd apologized a dozen times for the danger she'd brought to Ethan's door, but he'd waved it off. You were protecting your kids. Any parent would understand. Mary Chen, their lawyer, was building a case. The emergency custody hearing had gone their way. Judge Harrison had been unimpressed by Marcus's lawyers and their insinuations about Elena's mental state. But it was temporary. The real fight was coming. We need witnesses, Mary said over coffee at Ethan's kitchen table. People who knew Robert, who can testify about the marriage. about Marcus. Most of our friends were too scared, Elena said quietly. Marcus made sure of that. But slowly, people started coming forward. A secretary who'd overheard arguments, a driver who'd seen Marcus at Robert's house the night he died. Small pieces, but they added up. The twins were resilient, as children often are. They played with Lucas, helped with chores, and brought life back to the farmhouse. Sophie had taken to following Ethan around, asking endless questions about everything. Clara preferred quieter activities, often sitting with Elena and drawing. One evening, as Ethan was making dinner, spaghetti, one of his few successful dishes, Elena came into the kitchen. "I need to thank you," she said. "You've thanked me plenty." "No, I mean really thank you. You didn't just save my daughters, you saved all of us. You stood up to Marcus when no one else would." "Anyone would—" "No," she interrupted. "They wouldn't. Robert's friends didn't. The police in Denver didn't. Even Robert's parents chose Marcus over us. But you, a stranger, you fought for us. You're not strangers anymore." She smiled then, the first real smile he'd seen from her. "No, I suppose we're not." The moment stretched between them in the kitchen, the pasta water bubbling on the stove filling the silence. Elena's hand moved slightly on the counter, almost reaching toward his before pulling back. Outside, the children's laughter drifted through the window. Lucas was teaching the twins how to build a proper snowman, their delighted squeals piercing the cold Wyoming air. "Mama, look!" Clara's voice called. "We made a snow family!" Elena moved to the window and Ethan found himself following. In the yard, 3 snowmen stood in a row, one tall, one medium, 2 small ones holding stick hands. Lucas was placing a baseball cap on the tallest one, while Sophie attempted to give one of the smaller figures her pink mittens. "They haven't laughed like that in months," Elena said softly. "Since before Robert died. Maybe even before that. The last year, with Marcus always around, always watching." She shuddered. "Kids are tougher than we give them credit for," Ethan said. "They bounce back if you give them the chance. Lucas is a wonderful boy. You've raised him well. His mother gets most of the credit. I've just been trying not to mess up what she started." Elena turned to look at him. "Tell me about her." "Sarah." It wasn't often Ethan talked about Sarah to anyone outside the family, but standing there, watching their children play together, it felt natural. She was a force of nature, taught 3rd grade at the elementary school. Every kid loved her. She had this way of making everyone feel special, like they were the most important person in the world when she was talking to them. "How did you meet?" "House fire, her apartment building. I was the one who carried her out. She'd gone back in trying to save her neighbor's cat. Gave me hell the whole way down because I wouldn't let her go back for the damn cat." He smiled at the memory. "I went back and got the cat after. Showed up at the hospital with it, singed whiskers and all. She said any man who'd risk his life for someone else's cat was worth keeping around. She sounds wonderful." "She was. When she got sick." Ethan's voice roughened. "She fought so hard. Not for herself, but for Lucas. For me. She spent her last months making videos for Lucas, one for every birthday until he's 18, graduation, his wedding day. Made me promise to find happiness again." He laughed, but it was hollow. "Haven't quite managed that part yet." Elena's hand found his then, a gentle touch on his forearm. "I think she would be proud of what you did." Taking us in. She would have done it in a heartbeat. Probably would have had you all moved in and feeling at home within an hour of meeting you. The front door burst open, and 3 snow-covered children tumbled in. "We're freezing," Lucas announced dramatically. "We need hot chocolate or we might die." "Die," Sophie echoed, giggling. "Such drama," Elena said, but she was smiling. "Clean off that snow first or you'll flood Mr. Ethan's house." The children shed their winter gear in a chaotic pile by the door, then raced to the kitchen table. Ethan made hot chocolate while Elena served the spaghetti, and for a moment it felt like something he'd almost forgotten. Family. Not the same as before, not a replacement, but something new and fragile and good. After dinner, as had become their routine, Clara pulled out her drawing pad. She'd been sketching constantly since they'd arrived, processing her trauma through art like her mother. Tonight, she was drawing the lake, but not dark and scary. She'd added lights beneath the ice, like an underwater fairy world. That's beautiful, sweetheart, Elena said. It's what I saw when I was under, Clara said matter-of-factly. Before Mr. Ethan pulled us up. It was pretty, but cold. Sophie was curled against Lucas on the couch, both of them reading from one of his Harry Potter books. She'd insisted she could read English perfectly well, but kept asking Lucas about words, and he patiently explained each one. The domestic peace was shattered by headlights sweeping across the windows. Not one car, but several. Ethan was on his feet immediately, that old firefighter's instinct for danger firing. Take the kids upstairs, he told Elena quietly. Now. She didn't argue, gathering the children quickly despite their protests. Lucas grabbed the emergency flashlight from the kitchen drawer. The boy had learned to read his father's moods. Through the window, Ethan counted 5 cars. Not the black SUVs from before, but expensive sedans. Marcus Monroe stepped out of the lead car, but he wasn't alone. There was an older couple with him, distinguished, wealthy-looking. The woman had the same green eyes as the twins. Robert's parents, Elena whispered from the stairs. Margaret and William. Ethan opened the door before they could knock, standing in the doorway like a wall. Mr. Monroe. It's after 8 o'clock. The girls are getting ready for bed. My parents would like to meet their granddaughters, Marcus said smoothly. Surely you wouldn't deny them that. Margaret Monroe stepped forward. She was probably 70, impeccably dressed despite the rural setting, diamonds glittering at her throat. Mr. Cole, I understand you saved our granddaughters. We're grateful, but this has gone on long enough. Family matters should be handled by family. With respect, ma'am, where were you when your son died? When Elena needed help? When your granddaughters were in danger? William Monroe, a man who looked like he'd never heard no in his life, bristled. How dare you? I dare because I was the one in that freezing water. I was the one who's been keeping them safe. And right now, I'm the one standing between them and anyone who might hurt them. We would never hurt them, Margaret said, seeming genuinely offended. Maybe not physically, but taking them from their mother? That's a hurt that doesn't heal. Their mother, Marcus said with disdain, is an unstable foreign— Choose your next words very carefully, Ethan warned, his voice dropping to a dangerous level. Elena appeared beside him, chin raised despite her obvious fear. Hello, Margaret. William. Elena. Margaret's voice was ice. You've caused quite a scandal. By protecting my children from your son. Marcus is trying to help, William said. The girls need stability, proper education, their rightful place in society. They need their mother, Elena said firmly. You? Margaret laughed, but it wasn't pleasant. What can you offer them? You have no money, no home, no standing. You're not even American. I have something Marcus doesn't. I love them. Love doesn't pay for college. Love doesn't open doors. No, Ethan interjected. But it does keep little girls from ending up in frozen lakes because they're running from an uncle who scares them. That landed. Margaret flinched, and William's jaw tightened. We could make this all go away, Marcus said, pulling out a checkbook. Mr. Cole, what's your mortgage? 50,000? 100? I'll pay it off, cash, tonight. All you have to do is tell the court you can't keep them. Ethan stared at the checkbook. That money would solve everything. Lucas could go to college. He could fix the house, get a reliable truck, maybe even start over somewhere. All he had to do was betray a woman and 2 little girls who trusted him. Lucas, he called without turning around. Come here, son. Lucas appeared, wary but brave. Yeah, Dad. Mr. Monroe is offering us a lot of money to stop helping Sophie and Clara. What do you think? Lucas didn't hesitate. I think Sophie and Clara are our friends, and we don't sell out our friends. That's what I think, too. Ethan looked back at Marcus. There's your answer. Marcus's face darkened. You're making a mistake. I have resources you can't imagine. Lawyers, connections, and I have something you don't, Ethan said. Nothing left to lose. My wife is dead. My house is already mortgaged to the hilt, and I've been living paycheck to paycheck for 2 years. You can't threaten someone who's already at the bottom, Mr. Monroe. All you can do is make me fight harder. This isn't over, Marcus said. No, it's not, Margaret said suddenly, surprising everyone. She'd been studying Ethan, and something in her expression had shifted. But perhaps we should discuss this like civilized people. May we come in? Elena grabbed Ethan's arm. Don't trust them. But Ethan was watching Margaret. There was something in her eyes, not warmth exactly, but a crack in the ice. 5 minutes. But you come in peaceful, or you leave now. They filed in, the Monroe grandparents looking around the modest farmhouse with barely concealed surprise. Margaret's gaze lingered on the photos of Sarah on the mantel, the folded flag from Ethan's service, the children's drawings stuck to the refrigerator with magnets. Sophie! Clara, William called. Come say hello to your grandparents. The twins peeked out from behind the stairs, clutching each other. It's okay, Elena said gently. You can say hello. They crept forward, polite but clearly uncomfortable. Margaret knelt down, her expression softening slightly. You look just like your father when he was your age, she said to Sophie. Or maybe it was Clara. Even Ethan had trouble telling them apart sometimes. We miss Papa, Clara said quietly. So do we, Margaret said, and for the first time she sounded human. So very much. Then why are you being mean to Mama? Sophie asked with a child's directness. Margaret didn't have an answer for that. William cleared his throat. Girls, wouldn't you like to come see your father's house? Your rooms are just as you left them, all your toys, your books. We like it here, Clara interrupted. Mr. Ethan makes good pancakes. And Lucas is teaching us to fish, Sophie added, when the lake isn't frozen. Marcus made an impatient noise. This is ridiculous. They're Monroe children. They belong with their mother, Elena said firmly. You killed our son. William suddenly exploded, the words seeming to surprise even him. He was fine until he met you. Then suddenly he was questioning everything, fighting the family, talking about art and freedom and nonsense. You poisoned him against us. I loved him, Elena said simply, and he loved me. That's what you couldn't stand, that he chose me over your money, your control. And look where it got him, Marcus said coldly, dead on a mountain road. Yes, Elena said, meeting his eyes. How convenient for you. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. What are you implying? William demanded. I'm not implying anything. I'm stating a fact. Robert's death was very convenient for Marcus. He got control of everything, the company, the trust. Nearly got the girls, too. That's slander, Marcus said. It's truth, Elena shot back. Robert found out about the money you were stealing. The fake companies, the property transfers. He was going to expose you. You have no proof. Actually, Mary Chen said from the doorway, where she'd appeared unnoticed. She does. The young lawyer stepped in, followed by Tom Richards and another man in a suit, but this one had the bearing of federal law enforcement. Agent Dale Harrison, FBI, the man said, showing his badge. Mr. Monroe, we need to talk about your brother's death and several $1 million in missing trust funds. Marcus went pale. I want my lawyer. That's your right. But you should know, we've been investigating you for 6 months. Mrs. Monroe here just gave us the final pieces we needed. What pieces? William demanded, looking between his son and the FBI agent. Elena pulled a flash drive from her pocket. Robert gave this to me the night before he died. Said if anything happened to him, I should take it to the authorities. But I was scared, and then Marcus threatened to take the girls. But I'm not scared anymore. You had this the whole time. Marcus lunged for her, but Ethan stepped between them, and suddenly Marcus was on the floor, arm twisted behind his back. That's assault, Tom Richards said mildly. Guess I'll have to arrest you now. As Tom cuffed Marcus, Margaret sank onto the couch, looking every one of her 70 years. Is it true? She asked Elena. Did he kill Robert? I don't know for certain, Elena admitted. But Robert was sober. He was careful, and he was afraid of Marcus at the end. William stood frozen, watching his younger son being led away in handcuffs. We didn't know, he said hollowly. We thought Marcus said you were unstable, that you were making wild accusations. You wanted to believe him, Elena said, not unkindly. He was your son, the one who stayed, who ran the business, who gave you what you wanted to hear. Margaret was crying now, silent tears that she didn't bother to wipe away. We lost Robert because we couldn't accept his choices. And now Marcus. You haven't lost the girls, Elena said softly. You're their grandparents. They need family, just not the kind that tries to take them from me. Dad, Lucas whispered, tugging on Ethan's sleeve. Sophie's crying. Indeed, both twins were huddled together, tears streaming down their faces. The adult drama was too much for them. Ethan scooped them both up, one in each arm, and carried them to the couch. It's okay, he murmured. Everything's going to be okay now. Is Uncle Marcus going to jail? Clara asked. Maybe. But either way, he won't bother you anymore. What about Grandma and Grandpa? Sophie looked at her grandparents, who seemed to have aged a decade in the last few minutes. Margaret reached out tentatively. We'd like to be part of your lives. If your mother will allow it, the right way this time. Elena studied her former in-laws for a long moment. Robert would want that, but there will be rules. Boundaries, whatever you need, William said quickly. We can't lose them too. The FBI agent cleared his throat. Mrs. Monroe, we'll need you to come to the station tomorrow to give a full statement. Mr. Cole, we'll need yours as well about the attempted kidnapping. After everyone left, the FBI, the police, the grandparents, the lawyer, the house felt too quiet. The children were in bed, exhausted from the emotional turmoil. Elena sat at the kitchen table, staring at her hands. You okay? Ethan asked, setting a cup of tea in front of her. I don't know. For 6 months, I've been running, hiding, terrified. And now it's over, and I don't know what to do next. You heal. You rebuild. You raise your girls. Where? I have nothing. The house in Denver belongs to the Monroe Trust. My bank accounts were frozen. I literally have just what we carried. Ethan sat down across from her. You have a place here as long as you need it. You've done enough. More than enough. We've put you in danger, disrupted your life. You've made it better, Ethan said simply. This house hasn't felt this alive since Sarah died. Lucas hasn't laughed this much in 2 years. And I forgot what it felt like to have something to fight for. Elena looked at him, really looked at him. This man who'd jumped into freezing water for her children, who'd stood up to Marcus, who'd turned down money he desperately needed to do what was right. Ethan Cole, she said softly, you are a very good man. Just a man trying to do right. That's what makes you good. The next few weeks passed in a blur of legal proceedings. Marcus was formally charged with embezzlement, fraud, and conspiracy. While they couldn't prove he'd killed Robert, the financial crimes would put him away for decades. Margaret and William, shocked into reevaluation, set up trust funds for the girls that Elena would control and began tentative visits, supervised at first, then gradually more normal. The community rallied around them. Donations poured in, clothes for the twins, job offers for Elena to teach art at the community center, even a crowdfunding page that raised enough to pay off Ethan's mortgage, though he tried to refuse it until Elena pointed out he'd earned it by saving the girls. Plus, she said with a small smile, it's mostly Monroe money anyway. The grandparents made a very generous donation. Spring came slowly to Wyoming, but it came. The snow melted, revealing green grass and wildflowers. The lake where it had all started turned from forbidding ice to sparkling blue water. The twins learned to swim properly, Ethan and Lucas teaching them in the shallow end while Elena watched from the shore, sketching. One evening in May, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset paint the mountains gold, Elena said, "We should probably find our own place soon." Ethan's heart sank, though he'd known this was coming. "If that's what you want." "It's not," she admitted, "but we've imposed enough." "You're not imposing. Ethan." She turned to face him. "What are we doing here?" Really? He knew what she was asking. The careful dance they'd been doing for months, the lingering glances, the almost touches, the way they worked together like a long married couple. "I don't know," he said honestly. "I know you've been through hell. I know you're still grieving Robert. I know the last thing you probably need is complications." "You're not a complication," Elena said. "You're the reason we're alive. All of us. Not just because you pulled the girls from the lake, but because you gave us hope when we had none. Elena, I loved Robert, she continued. I'll always love him. But he's gone, and I'm here. The girls are here, and every day I watch you with them, with Lucas, and I think Robert would have liked you. I think he would want this. Want what? Instead of answering with words, Elena leaned over and kissed him. It was soft, tentative, a question more than a statement. When she pulled back, Ethan's eyes were closed. I promised Sarah I'd find happiness again, he said quietly. I just never thought it would find me. Is that what this is? Happiness? He opened his eyes, seeing her there in the golden light, this woman who'd traveled so far, survived so much, and somehow landed on his doorstep. Yeah, I think it is. From inside the house came the sound of laughter, all three children playing some elaborate game that seemed to involve pillow forts and dramatic death scenes. They're already a family, Elena observed. So are we, Ethan said, taking her hand. If you want to be. A ready-made family of 5? Most people would run. Most people didn't marry Sarah. She always said we'd have a full house one day. Guess she was right, just not the way we planned. Elena squeezed his hand. The girls asked me yesterday if they could call you Papa Ethan. What did you tell them? I said they should ask you. Before Ethan could respond, the front door burst open, and Sophie, or maybe Clara, announced, Lucas is dying dramatically, and he needs a funeral. A Viking funeral, the other twin added, with fire. No fire in the house, Ethan and Elena said in unison, then looked at each other and laughed. You sound like parents, Lucas called from inside. We are parents, Ethan called back, looking at Elena as he said it. She smiled, that full, genuine smile that transformed her face. Yes, we are. As they went inside to prevent their children from setting the house on fire, Ethan thought about the strange paths life took. 6 months ago, he'd been a grieving widower going through the motions. Now he had a full house, a woman he was falling in love with, and 3 children who'd somehow become his. The next morning brought an unexpected visitor. Anna Peterson, Elena's friend who'd been in Europe when they'd fled to Wyoming, stood on the porch with tears in her eyes. Elena! My God, I just heard everything. I'm so sorry I wasn't here. The 2 women embraced, speaking rapid German. Anna had brought art supplies, real ones, professional grade, and news from the art world. The Westbrook Gallery wants to do a show of your work, Anna said. They heard about everything, and there's been renewed interest. The story of the artist who survived, who fought for her children, it's captured people's imagination. I haven't painted in months, Elena protested. Then it's time to start again. They converted the old barn into a studio. It needed work, new windows, insulation, heating, but William and Margaret Monroe, in their attempt at redemption, funded the renovation. By midsummer, Elena was painting again, and her work had changed. Gone were the dark, abstract pieces from her time with Robert. Now she painted light, the sun on the lake, the children playing, Ethan's hands as he worked. One painting in particular drew attention, a view from underwater, looking up at the ice, with 2 small figures suspended between worlds and a larger figure reaching down to pull them up. She called it Salvation. It's powerful, Anna said when she saw it, heartbreaking and hopeful at once. It's our story, Elena said simply. The show was scheduled for October in Jackson Hole. Gallery owners, collectors, and critics would come from Denver, Salt Lake City, even Los Angeles. It was a big deal, the kind of break most artists only dreamed of. But as summer turned to fall, something else was taking shape. The custody case was officially closed. Elena had full custody, with the grandparents getting supervised visits that were going surprisingly well. Marcus was awaiting trial, his assets frozen. The girls were thriving, starting at the local school with Lucas, making friends, becoming normal kids instead of sheltered heiresses. And Ethan and Elena were, what were they? Not exactly dating, they lived together, raised children together, but there was still a careful distance, a respect for what they'd each lost and what they were slowly building. One evening, as Elena was painting and Ethan was fixing dinner, Lucas asked, "Are you and Elena going to get married?" Ethan nearly dropped the pot he was holding. "That's complicated, buddy." "Why? You love her, don't you?" It's not that simple. Sure it is. You look at her the way you used to look at Mom, and she looks at you the same way. Lucas, Mom would be happy, Lucas said firmly. She told me to take care of you, to make sure you didn't close yourself off. And Elena's nice. The twins are fun. We're already a family. Why not make it official? From the doorway, Sophie's voice piped up. Are you talking about marriage? Claire and I think you should get married too. Then we'd be real sisters with Lucas, Claire added, appearing beside her twin. Ethan looked at the three children, co-conspirators in matchmaking. Have you been planning this? Maybe, Lucas admitted with a grin. Elena should probably have a say in this, don't you think? Have a say in what? Elena asked, coming in from the barn, paint smudged on her cheek. The children think we should get married, Ethan said, deciding on directness. Elena froze, looking between Ethan and the children. Oh. You don't have to, Ethan started. I know I don't have to. She walked over to him, ignoring their audience. But what do you want? I want, Ethan took a breath. I want to wake up next to you every morning knowing it's permanent. I want to adopt the girls officially. I want Lucas to have the sisters he's always wanted. I want to stop being careful and just be happy. That's a lot of wants. Yeah, well, I'm a greedy man. Elena laughed, and it was like sunshine. Then I suppose we should get married. Really? Really? But I have conditions. Name them. Small wedding. Here at the house. Just family and close friends. Done. I keep painting. The show goes on. Of course. And we name our next child after Sarah. Ethan's breath caught. Next child? Elena placed his hand on her stomach. I found out this morning. I was trying to figure out how to tell you. The kitchen erupted in chaos, the children cheering, Ethan pulling Elena into a kiss, everyone talking at once. It was loud and messy and perfect. They married in November, just after the first snow. The farmhouse was decorated with white lights and Elena's paintings. Margaret and William came, genuinely happy for the first time in months. Tom Richards officiated, having gotten ordained online just for the occasion. Anna was Elena's maid of honor, and Bill Morrison was Ethan's best man. Elena wore a simple white dress and carried wildflowers the children had helped pick and preserve. Ethan wore his only suit, the one from Sarah's funeral, but somehow it felt right, a bridge between past and present. Do you take this woman and her two daughters? Tom asked, going off script. I do, Ethan said firmly. Do you take this man and his son? I do, Elena said through happy tears. And do you three children take each other as siblings? We do, they chorused. As they kissed, snow began to fall, soft and silent. The twins danced in it. Lucas threw snowballs at Bill, and the grandparents took photos with their phones, finally learning to be present instead of controlling. Later, as the reception wound down and the children had fallen asleep in a pile on the couch like puppies, Ethan and Elena stood at the window watching the snow. No regrets? He asked. None. You? How could I regret the best thing that ever happened to me? Besides Sarah, I mean. She brought us together, Elena said softly. Her love for you shaped the man who saved my daughters. In a way, she saved us too. Ethan pulled her closer. The girls asked if they could call me Papa now. Not Papa Ethan, just Papa. What did you say? I said I'd be honored. Robert would be glad, Elena said, to know they have a father again. A good one. They stood in comfortable silence, watching their new world take shape under the snow. Tomorrow would bring challenges. The gallery show, the new baby, Marcus's trial, the complex dance of a blended family. But tonight, in this moment, they had everything. Thank you, Elena whispered. For what? For jumping into that lake. For standing up to Marcus. For loving my daughters. For loving me. Thank you for crashing into my life and refusing to leave. She laughed. We were quite the invasion. The best kind. From the couch, Clara stirred, mumbling in her sleep. Papa? Ethan's heart clenched. I'm here, sweetheart. Papa's here. And he was. For all of them. Forever. The gallery show in Jackson Hole arrived faster than any of them expected. Elena stood in the space the morning of the opening, her hands trembling slightly as she watched the crew hang the last painting, the underwater scene that had started it all. The gallery owner, Patricia Westbrook, a sharp woman in her 60s with silver hair and knowing eyes, walked through making final adjustments. "This is going to be extraordinary," Patricia said, stopping beside Elena. "The story behind the art, the triumph over tragedy, people are fascinated." "I don't want it to be about the story," Elena said quietly. "I want the work to stand on its own." "It does. But art doesn't exist in a vacuum. Your journey informs the work, makes it richer." Ethan appeared in the doorway with the children, all dressed in their best clothes. The twins wore matching green dresses that brought out their eyes, while Lucas had reluctantly put on a button-down shirt and tie. Even at 6 months pregnant, Elena moved gracefully to greet them. "You look beautiful," Ethan said, kissing her cheek. "I look like I swallowed a basketball." "A beautiful basketball." "Gross," Lucas said, but he was grinning. The idea of a baby sister, they'd found out it was a girl, had grown on him after the initial shock. "Mama, is that us?" Sophie pointed to the underwater painting, recognizing something in the small figures. "It's all of us," Elena said. "Our whole story." People began arriving an hour before the official opening. Collectors, critics, local society. Margaret and William Monroe were among the first, having driven up from Denver. The relationship was still delicate, but they were trying. William had even publicly denounced Marcus, who was now serving 15 years in federal prison. "Elena, dear," Margaret said, air-kissing carefully, "the work is stunning." "Thank you." William cleared his throat. "We've brought some potential buyers. Friends from Denver who collect. If that's all right." It was an olive branch, and Elena took it. "That's very kind." As the gallery filled, Ethan found himself playing an unexpected role, the story behind the story. People who'd heard about the rescue wanted to meet the man who jumped into the frozen lake. He tried to deflect, uncomfortable with the attention, but Elena would catch his eye across the room and smile, giving him strength. "You're the firefighter," a woman said, approaching him with a reporter's intensity. "Jennifer Walsh, Denver Post. I've been following this story for months." "I'm just a dad," Ethan corrected, "who saved 2 children from certain death and then protected their family from a powerful man. That's more than just anything. Anyone would have—" "No," Jennifer interrupted. "They wouldn't have. I've covered enough tragedy to know that most people freeze, wait for someone else, assume it's not their problem. You acted. That's rare." Before Ethan could respond, there was a commotion near the entrance. A man had entered, tall, expensively dressed, with an air of authority that made people step aside. But it wasn't his presence that caused the stir. It was Elena's reaction. She went white, one hand going protectively to her stomach. "Klaus?" she whispered. The man approached, his face a mix of emotions. "Elena, it's been a long time." "Who's that?" Lucas asked, tugging on Ethan's sleeve. "I don't know," Ethan said, but he was already moving toward Elena, protective instincts firing. "Klaus is my brother," Elena said, her voice shaky. "From Germany. I haven't seen him in 5 years." Klaus reached them, his eyes taking in Elena's pregnant state, the children, Ethan's protective stance. "You didn't tell me," he said in accented English, "about any of this. I had to read about it in the international papers. My sister, involved in some American scandal. How did you find me?" "The gallery opening was announced. Your name, your story, it's everywhere." He paused, emotion breaking through his controlled exterior. "Elena, why didn't you call me?" "When Robert died." "When you were in trouble?" "You made it clear you disapproved of my choices. Moving to America, marrying Robert, I was wrong." The words seemed to cost him. "I was angry that you left, that you chose a life so far from home. But you're my sister, my only family. I should have been here." Elena's eyes filled with tears. "Klaus." "Papa Ethan, who's the sad man?" Claire asked loudly, in that way children had of cutting through adult tension. Klaus looked down at the twins, and his expression softened. You must be Sophie and Clara. You look like your mother when she was young. Our mama is the best artist in the whole world, Sophie declared. Yes, Klaus agreed. She always was. He looked at Ethan then, extending his hand. You're the man who saved them. Ethan Cole. They shook, Ethan noting the firm grip, the calluses that suggested Klaus wasn't just a soft businessman. I owe you a debt, Klaus said seriously. In my family, in the old country, such debts are not forgotten. There's no debt. I did what anyone would do. Klaus smiled slightly. My sister said you would say that. He turned back to Elena. I've come to make things right, to be the brother I should have been. It's too late for that, Elena said, but there was hope in her voice. It's never too late for family. Klaus reached into his jacket, pulling out an envelope. From Mama and Papa's estate. Your portion. I've been holding it, hoping you'd come home, but I think you are home, aren't you? Elena took the envelope with shaking hands. Inside was a check that made her gasp. Klaus, this is what you're owed. What I should have given you years ago instead of trying to force you to come back. He looked around the gallery. May I stay? See your work? Of course. The evening progressed with a surreal quality. Elena's paintings sold one after another, red dots appearing on the cards beside them. The underwater piece went for an astronomical sum to a collector from Los Angeles. By the end of the night, Elena had made more money than Ethan had seen in his lifetime. But money wasn't what mattered. What mattered was Elena standing tall, proud, no longer the scared woman who'd collapsed on his porch. What mattered was the children running through the gallery, treating it like their personal playground. What mattered was family, the one they'd built and the one slowly healing. Klaus stayed for 3 days. He helped around the farm despite his expensive clothes, taught Lucas some German curse words when he thought the adults weren't listening, and had long conversations with Elena in their native language. On his last night, they all sat around the kitchen table, the same one where Elena had sat that first night, lost and afraid. I was wrong about Robert, Klaus admitted. He was a good man. He loved you well. He did, Elena agreed, reaching for Ethan's hand. And now I've found another good man. Klaus studied Ethan. You'll protect them. With my life. I believe you. Klaus stood. I must return to Munich. But I'll visit often if you'll have me. Uncle Klaus, the twins said in unison, you have to come back for Christmas. And for when baby Sarah is born, Lucas added. Klaus's eyebrows rose. Sarah? After my first wife, Ethan explained. Elena's idea. A good way to honor the past while building the future, Klaus said approvingly. Very German of you. After he left, Elena was quiet. They walked by the lake, the same lake where it all began, while the children played in the yard under the watchful eye of their neighbor, Mrs. Patterson. You okay? Ethan asked. I never thought I'd have my brother back. I thought that part of my life was gone forever. Nothing's gone forever, it just changes shape. Very philosophical, Mr. Cole. I have my moments. Elena stopped walking, turning to face him. Do you ever think about how impossible this all is? The odds of you being at that lake at that exact moment, of us ending up here together, building this life? Every day. Does it scare you? Terrified, Ethan admitted. I wake up sometimes thinking it's all a dream. That I'll open my eyes and be back in that empty house, just me and Lucas and the ghosts. It's not a dream, Elena said, taking his hand and placing it on her belly where the baby was kicking. This is real. We're real. Christmas came with a vengeance that year. 2 feet of snow in 3 days, the kind of storm that shut down roads and forced families together. Not that the Cole family minded. They were prepared, the house warm and full of food, the children ecstatic about being snowed in. Klaus had kept his promise, arriving 2 days before Christmas with an absurd amount of presents and stories from Germany. Margaret and William came too, their driver barely making it through before the roads closed. It should have been awkward, the former in-laws, the German brother, the patchwork family, but somehow it worked. They were decorating the tree when Elena's water broke. Now, she said, staring at the puddle on the floor. She's not due for 2 weeks. Babies don't check calendars, Ethan said, already grabbing the hospital bag they'd packed. But looking outside at the white wall of snow, he knew they weren't going anywhere. I'll call 911, William said, reaching for his phone. No signal, Margaret reported, checking hers. The storm must have knocked out the towers. Hospital's 30 miles away, Ethan said, his mind racing. In this snow, even if we could get out, then we do this here, Klaus said calmly. Women have been having babies at home for thousands of years. Not my wife, Ethan started, but Elena grabbed his arm. We don't have a choice. And you've delivered babies before. In the field. That was different. That wasn't you. Ethan. Her voice was calm, but he could see the fear underneath. You saved me once. Saved me again. The next hours were a blur. They set up in the master bedroom, Klaus boiling water because that's what people did in movies, Margaret finding clean towels and sheets, William keeping the children distracted downstairs with stories and games. Elena was magnificent, fierce and determined, gripping Ethan's hand hard enough to leave bruises. Between contractions, she even laughed. This is not how I pictured this going. Nothing about our story has gone as pictured, Ethan pointed out. True. Another contraction hit and she bore down, a sound escaping that was part scream, part warrior cry. I can see her head, Ethan said, his paramedic training taking over. Dark hair like yours. One more big push, love. Love. He'd never called her that before, but it felt right, felt necessary in this moment where life and death danced so close together. Elena pushed, and suddenly there she was, tiny, perfect, screaming her displeasure at the cold world. Ethan caught her, his hands sure despite his terror, clearing her airways, checking her color. The baby's cries were the most beautiful sound he'd ever heard. She's perfect, he said, placing her on Elena's chest. Absolutely perfect. Elena was crying, laughing, exhausted and exhilarated all at once. Sarah, she whispered. Hello, Sarah. The door burst open, and 3 children tumbled in, unable to wait any longer. Is that our sister? Lucas asked, awe in his voice. That's her, Ethan confirmed, wrapping his arm around his son. She's so small, Sophie said. And wrinkly, Clara added. She's beautiful, Margaret said from the doorway, tears streaming down her face. Just beautiful. They all crowded into the room, this unlikely family brought together by tragedy and triumph, by frozen lakes and fierce love. Outside, the snow continued to fall, but inside was warmth and light and new life. What's her full name? Klaus asked. Elena looked at Ethan, then at the children, then at the baby in her arms. Sarah Hope Cole. Sarah for the woman who shaped the man who saved us. Hope for what we've all found together. Hope, William repeated, his voice thick. Robert would have loved that. As if in response, baby Sarah opened her eyes, bright blue that would probably change but were perfect for now, and seemed to look right at them all. Later, after the paramedics had finally made it through on snowmobiles and confirmed that mother and baby were healthy, after the grandparents and Klaus had been settled in guest rooms, after the children had finally crashed from their excitement, Ethan and Elena lay in bed with Sarah between them. We did it, Elena said softly. You did it. I just caught. We did it, she insisted. All of it. This whole impossible, beautiful life. No regrets? How could I regret the path that led me here? Sarah made a small sound, not quite a cry, more like a comment on the conversation. They both laughed quietly. She's going to be trouble, Ethan predicted. I can tell already. Good. She'll fit right in with the rest of them. Through the window, the snow had finally stopped, and stars were visible between the clouds. The same stars that had witnessed a desperate rescue on a frozen lake a year ago now watched over a family complete, if unconventional. Ethan? That night, when you jumped in the lake. What made you do it? Really? He was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, Sarah. My Sarah. The night before she died, she made me promise something. She said, when you see someone drowning, you jump. Don't think, don't hesitate. Just jump. The world needs more people who jump. She was talking about more than water. Yeah, she was talking about life, about love, about taking the leap even when you can't see the bottom. Elena turned to kiss him, careful not to disturb the baby. Thank you for jumping. Thank you for letting me catch you. The spring following Sarah's birth brought unexpected challenges and joys in equal measure. Marcus's trial was approaching, and Elena had to testify. The thought of facing him again, of reliving those terrified days, made her anxious enough that she could barely paint. You don't have to do this, Ethan said one morning, finding her in the barn studio, staring at a blank canvas. Yes, I do. For Robert, for the girls, for everyone else he might hurt if he gets out. Then we'll all go. Moral support. You can't bring a baby to a federal trial. Watch me. In the end, they did all go. Even Klaus flew in from Munich. The courtroom was packed, media everywhere. Marcus sat at the defense table, looking smaller somehow, his expensive suit unable to hide the prison pallor. Elena testified for 3 hours, detailing the fear, the threats, the night she'd hidden her daughters in the freezing woods rather than let Marcus take them. She was composed, articulate, and devastating. When the defense attorney tried to paint her as an unstable foreign gold digger, she responded with such dignity that even the judge seemed impressed. I loved my husband, she said clearly. I love my daughters. And I did what any mother would do to protect them. If that makes me unstable, then I accept that label gladly. Ethan testified too, about finding the girls in the lake, about Marcus's attempts to take them, about the condition Elena was in when she'd collapsed on his porch. He was matter-of-fact, professional, and utterly believable. But it was the twins' testimony, given via closed-circuit video to protect them from trauma, that sealed Marcus's fate. Their innocent recounting of their fear, of Uncle Marcus saying Mama would go away forever, of hiding in the cold woods because Mama said they had to. It was heartbreaking. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours, guilty on all counts. Marcus would serve 25 to life, with no possibility of parole for 15 years. As they left the courthouse, Elena stopped on the steps, looking back. It's over, she said, wonder in her voice. It's really over. The bad part is, Ethan agreed, the good part's just beginning. They drove home through the Colorado mountains, the children sleeping in the back, baby Sarah in her car seat between the twins. The farmhouse came into view as the sun was setting, painting everything gold. Home, Lucas said sleepily. Home, Elena agreed. But their peace was short-lived. 2 days later, while Ethan was in town getting supplies, a car pulled up to the house. Elena was in the garden with the children when a woman got out, elegant, cold, familiar in a way that made Elena's blood run cold. Hello, Elena, the woman said. Or should I say, sister-in-law. It was Victoria Monroe, Marcus's wife. Elena had met her only once, at Robert's funeral, where she'd stood silent and stone-faced beside her husband. Victoria, what are you doing here? I came to apologize, and to warn you. Warn me? Victoria glanced at the children, who were watching with wide eyes. Perhaps we could speak privately? Elena sent the children inside with strict instructions to watch Sarah and not answer the door for anyone. Then she faced Victoria in the garden, among the vegetables she'd been teaching the twins to grow. Marcus had partners, Victoria said without preamble. People who benefited from his schemes. They're not happy about his conviction, about their exposure. They blame you. Are you threatening me? I'm trying to protect you. Victoria's composure cracked slightly. I know what everyone thinks, that I knew, that I was complicit. But I didn't know. Not until the trial. 20 years of marriage, and I didn't know who he really was. Why should I believe you? Because I'm leaving him, divorcing him, taking our children and disappearing. And you should consider doing the same. Before Elena could respond, the sound of Ethan's truck filled the air. He pulled up fast, clearly having seen the unknown car. He was out and moving toward them before the engine fully died. Everything okay? This is Victoria Monroe, Elena said carefully. Marcus's wife. Ethan's stance shifted subtly, ready for trouble. Mrs. Monroe. I was just leaving, Victoria said. But please, think about what I said. These people don't forgive, and they don't forget. She handed Elena a card. My lawyer. If you need anything, evidence, testimony against Marcus, whatever, call him. After she left, Elena told Ethan everything. He listened, his face growing darker with each word. We need to talk to Tom Richards, he said finally, and maybe the FBI agent who handled Marcus's case. You think she's serious? About the danger? I think we'd be stupid not to take it seriously. That night, after the children were asleep, they sat at the kitchen table with Tom Richards, Agent Harrison from the FBI, and Mary Chen, their lawyer. Victoria Monroe's not wrong, Agent Harrison said grimly. Marcus had connections to some serious people. Money laundering, real estate fraud. It goes deep. We're still unraveling it all. So what do we do? Elena asked, baby Sarah sleeping in her arms. We protect you, Tom said firmly. Increase patrols, panic buttons, security system. Or you could relocate, Agent Harrison suggested. Witness protection. No. Ethan's voice was firm. This is our home. We're not running. Ethan, Elena started. You ran once. It nearly killed you and the girls. We make our stand here together. Over the next weeks, their home transformed. Security cameras, alarm systems, neighbors organized into a watch network. It should have felt like living in fear, but instead it felt like community. The people of their small Wyoming town had adopted Elena and the twins as their own, and they protected their own. The threat came on an ordinary Tuesday. Elena was picking the children up from school when she noticed the car following them. Black sedan, tinted windows, staying exactly 3 cars back. Her hands tightened on the steering wheel. Mama, why are we going the wrong way? Sophie asked. Just a detour, sweetheart. She drove to the police station, pulling right up to the front door. The sedan drove past without slowing, but she got the license plate. Tom Richards ran it immediately. Rental car, fake name, paid in cash. They're watching, he said. Testing. That night, Ethan sat on the porch with his rifle, Lucas beside him with the baseball bat he'd insisted on holding. Are we in danger, Dad? Lucas asked quietly. Maybe, but we're ready for it. I'm not scared. It's okay to be scared. Being brave doesn't mean not feeling fear. It means doing what needs to be done anyway, Lucas finished. Mom used to say that. Yeah, she did. She'd be proud of us, wouldn't she? Taking care of Elena and the girls and baby Sarah? She'd be so proud. The attack, when it came, was not what they expected. No men with guns, no dramatic confrontation. Instead, Elena's bank accounts were frozen, her gallery contract mysteriously canceled, and Child Services received an anonymous complaint about the safety of the home. They're trying to destroy us without touching us, Elena said, reading the notice from Child Services. Then we fight back the same way, Ethan said. Klaus flew in immediately when he heard, bringing with him a team of German lawyers who specialized in international finance. Nobody threatens my sister, he said simply. Margaret and William used their connections to restore Elena's gallery contract and added their voices to the character witnesses for the Child Services investigation. Even Victoria Monroe, true to her word, provided evidence of her husband's associates' harassment tactics. The investigation into their home was thorough, but ultimately vindicating. Dr. Hendricks herself testified to the children's well-being and the strength of the family unit. The social worker, after spending a day with them, actually apologized. This is clearly a vendetta, she said. Your children are thriving. This home is full of love. The financial attacks were harder to fight, but Klaus's lawyers were ruthless. They tracked the frozen accounts to shell companies connected to Marcus's associates and filed lawsuits that made headlines. German artist fights back against corruption ring, read one. Wyoming family stands against corporate intimidation, read another. Public opinion turned decisively in their favor. Donations poured in again, and Elena's paintings began selling for even higher prices. Collectors loved an artist who was also a fighter. One morning, Agent Harrison arrived with news. We've arrested 3 of Marcus's associates. The financial attacks, the harassment, we've traced it all back to them. They're looking at serious federal time. So it's over? Elena asked hopefully. This part is. Marcus still has a few loyal friends, but they're running scared now. Too much attention, too much heat. You won. That night, they celebrated quietly. No grand party, just family dinner with Klaus, the grandparents, and Mrs. Patterson from next door. The children performed a play they'd written about a brave knight, Lucas, saving two princesses, the twins, from a dragon, while baby Sarah gurgled from her high chair. "You know what this means?" Elena said to Ethan as they cleaned up after everyone had gone home. "What?" "We're free. Really, truly free. No more looking over our shoulders, no more waiting for the next attack." "So what do we do with freedom?" Elena smiled. "We live." And they did. The gallery show that fall was a triumph. Elena's new work, lighter, more hopeful, full of the joy she'd found, sold out opening night. She donated half the proceeds to a fund for single parents in crisis, managed by Dr. Hendricks. Lucas started high school, playing football like his father had, but also taking art classes from Elena. The twins joined the school orchestra, both playing violin with the same intensity they brought to everything. Baby Sarah grew into a toddler who had her father's stubborn streak and her mother's artistic eye, always grabbing for paintbrushes and leaving colorful handprints on every available surface. On the second anniversary of the lake rescue, they all stood at the shore, now covered in spring flowers instead of ice. The twins threw flowers into the water, a tradition Elena had started to honor how far they'd come. "I remember being under there," Clara said quietly, "thinking we were going to die." "But we didn't," Sophie said firmly. "Papa Ethan saved us." "We all saved each other," Ethan said, holding Sarah on his hip while she played with his collar. Elena leaned into him, her hand finding his. "That's what families do." As they walked back to the house, Lucas ran ahead with the twins, their laughter echoing across the meadow. Sarah squirmed to be put down, toddling after her siblings on unsteady legs. "Any regrets?" Elena asked, their old question. "Only one," Ethan said. Elena looked at him in surprise. "What?" "I wish Sarah could have met you. She would have loved you so much." "She did meet me," Elena said softly. "Through you. Every kind thing you do, every time you jump in to save someone, that's her legacy living on." They stopped walking, standing in the field with their house in view. No longer a struggling farmhouse, but a thriving home, with Elena's studio, a new addition for the growing family, gardens everywhere. "You know what I think?" Elena said. "I think everything happened exactly as it was meant to. The pain, the loss, the fear, it all led us here. Robert's death led me to Wyoming. Sarah's death prepared you to save us. Even Marcus's evil brought us together." That's a beautiful way to look at tragedy. It's the only way that makes sense. Otherwise, the pain is just pain. But if it leads to love, to family, to this, then it meant something. A car appeared on the road, kicking up dust. For a moment, old fear flickered, but then they recognized it. Tom Richards' patrol car. He pulled up, getting out with a grin. "Thought you'd want to know," he said. "Marcus died in prison. Heart attack. It's really over now." Elena absorbed this news quietly. "I don't feel happy about it. Or sad. I just feel finished with that chapter." "Good," Tom said, "because I actually came out here for another reason." He pulled out an envelope. "Letter came to the station for you, Ethan, from the state fire marshal's office." Ethan opened it, then read it again. "They want me to come back. Teaching position at the fire academy, training new firefighters." "That's wonderful," Elena said. "You should—" "It's in Cheyenne. We'd have to move." They all looked at the house, the land, the place where their family had been forged. "Or," Tom said with a grin, "you could take the other offer in there. The one where you set up a training facility here." Apparently some anonymous benefactor, he looked meaningfully at Klaus's car parked by the barn, offered to fund a rural firefighter training program, based right here in Madison County. Ethan read further, his eyes widening. This would mean hiring staff, building facilities. "Tom, this is huge." "You'd be saving lives again," Elena said softly, "teaching others to jump." "We'd be crazy to take this on. With the kids, the baby, your art career." "We've done crazier things," Elena pointed out. "We're good at crazy." That night, after the children were asleep, Ethan and Elena sat on the porch swing they'd installed last summer. The stars were bright, the air was warm, and somewhere in the distance, coyotes sang to the moon. "So we're really doing this?" Elena asked. "The training center?" "If you're okay with it. It means chaos, construction, strangers coming through. It means purpose," Elena interrupted. "It means teaching others what you taught our children, that when someone needs help, you help. When you see someone drowning, you jump. You really are amazing, you know that? I'm a survivor who found a protector who became a partner. We're both amazing." Baby Sarah cried from inside, and they both started to get up, then laughed. "Your turn," they said in unison, then laughed again. "Rock, paper, scissors?" Ethan suggested. "Just go," Elena said, pushing him gently. "But hurry back. I want to talk about maybe another baby." Ethan stopped dead. "Another? Elena, we have 4 kids already. And a big house and so much love. And besides," she said with a mischievous smile, "Lucas wants a brother. He's outnumbered." "You're serious." When have I ever not been serious about family? As Ethan went inside to tend to Sarah, he could hear Elena humming, some German lullaby she sang to all the children. Through the window, he could see into the living room where the walls were covered with photos. Their wedding, the twins' first day of school, Lucas's football games, Sarah's first steps, Elena's gallery openings, Klaus visiting from Germany, the grandparents learning to relax and play. A family built from tragedy but defined by triumph. A love story written in rescue and redemption. A future bright with possibility. And it had all started with a single moment of choice when a grieving father decided to jump into a frozen lake to save 2 drowning girls, never knowing he was really saving himself. The construction crews arrived on a Monday morning in June, their trucks rumbling down the dirt road like an invading army. Sarah, now 2 and fearless, stood at the window shouting, "Trucks! Big trucks!" while the twins tried to teach her to count them in German. Lucas was already outside, talking to the foreman about excavators and concrete grades with the confidence of someone twice his age. "He's going to be an engineer," Elena said, watching from beside Ethan. "Or an architect. Look how he studies everything. He gets that from you. The attention to detail. And the need to help everyone? That's all you." The training center was Klaus's brainchild made real, a state-of-the-art facility that would serve 5 rural counties, teaching firefighters, paramedics, and first responders. But more than that, it would include what Elena had insisted on, a program for at-risk youth, teaching them emergency skills while giving them purpose and direction. "Mr. Cole?" A young woman approached, clipboard in hand. "I'm Jennifer Martinez from the State Certification Board. I need to review the youth program curriculum." As Ethan walked her through the plans, Elena noticed a familiar car pulling up. Dr. Hendricks emerged, but she wasn't alone. A young boy, maybe 13, climbed out after her, all sharp angles and suspicious eyes. "Elena?" Dr. Hendricks called. "This is Tyler." "The boy I mentioned on the phone?" Tyler stood apart, backpack clutched like armor. Foster kid, Elena recognized the look. The same wariness the twins had carried those first weeks. She approached slowly, the way she would a spooked horse in her father's stable back in Munich. "Tyler, this is Mrs. Cole. Her family runs the ranch where the training center is being built." "It's not a ranch," Tyler said, voice cracking between child and teenager. "Ranches have cattle. This is a farm." "You're absolutely right," Elena said, smiling. "Would you like to see the barn?" "I have a studio there. I'm an artist." "I don't like art." "That's fine. But there are kittens. Barn cats had babies last month." Tyler's tough facade cracked slightly. "Kittens?" As Elena led him away, Dr. Hendricks filled Ethan in. "Parents died in a car accident 6 months ago. No relatives. He's been through 3 foster homes, keeps running away, trying to get back to where his parents died. He's brilliant but angry. I thought maybe. The youth program doesn't start for 3 months. I know, but he needs something now. Someone who understands loss." Ethan watched Elena showing Tyler the kittens, saw the boy's shoulders relax incrementally as a tiny orange tabby climbed his arm. "Let me talk to Elena." That night, after Tyler had been settled in the guest room, just for a few nights, Dr. Hendricks had said, though they all knew better, the family gathered for dinner. Tyler sat stiffly, clearly uncomfortable with the chaos of family life. "Pass the potatoes," Lucas said to him, casual as anything. "Why?" Tyler challenged. "Because they're closer to you and I'm hungry." "What if I don't want to?" Lucas shrugged. "Then I'll get up and get them myself. But it'd be easier if you just passed them." Tyler passed the potatoes, confused by the lack of confrontation. "Tyler doesn't like art," Clara announced. "That's weird." "Clara!" Elena scolded. "What?" "It is weird. Art is the best." "Not everyone has to like the same things," Ethan said diplomatically. "Tyler likes kittens, though," Sophie added. "So he's not completely weird." "Can we stop calling our guest weird?" Elena asked, though she was fighting a smile. "I'm not a guest," Tyler said quietly. "I'm just temporary." "Everyone's temporary," Lucas said philosophically. "We're all going to die eventually." "Lucas," Ethan said, "what kind of dinner conversation is that?" "It's true, though. Mom died. But she was here first, and that mattered. Being temporary doesn't mean not being important." The table fell silent. Tyler stared at Lucas with something like recognition. Here was another kid who understood loss. "Your mom died?" Tyler asked. "Cancer, 4 years ago. Mine was a car accident, both parents. That sucks." "Yeah." And somehow that simple exchange shifted something. Tyler ate the rest of his dinner, even helped clear the table when the twins enlisted him through sheer persistent chatter. Later, Ethan found Tyler on the porch, staring at the stars. "Different from the city?" Ethan asked, sitting beside him. "My dad used to show me constellations. Before we moved to Denver, when we lived in the country." "Which ones do you remember?" Tyler pointed. "Orion, Cassiopeia, the Big Dipper, obviously. Your dad taught you well. He taught me a lot of things. How to throw a baseball, how to change a tire, how to be brave." Tyler's voice broke on the last word. "Being brave isn't about not being scared or sad," Ethan said carefully. "It's about keeping going anyway. That's what everyone says. Doesn't make it less true." They sat in silence for a while. Then Tyler asked, "Why did you take me in?" "The real reason." "Because someone needs to. Because you need somewhere to be while you figure out what comes next. Because my wife, my first wife, would have opened that door before Dr. Hendricks even finished asking." "Your first wife?" "Sarah. She died, like Lucas said. Elena is my second wife. The twins are her daughters from her first marriage. Their father died too. We're kind of a collection of broken pieces that fit together into something new." Tyler absorbed this. "So everyone here has lost someone?" "Everyone everywhere has lost someone. The question is what you do after. What did you do?" "Jumped in a frozen lake to save 2 drowning girls. Ended up saving myself in the process." The next morning, Tyler was still there, helping Lucas with chores without being asked. Within a week, he'd stopped mentioning leaving. Within a month, when Dr. Hendricks asked if he wanted to try another foster home closer to Denver, he said no so firmly that everyone pretended not to notice Elena wiping her eyes. The training center construction continued through the summer. The main building took shape: classrooms, simulation rooms, a burn tower for practicing rescues. The youth dormitory was Elena's project, designed to house 20 teenagers for month-long programs. "We're calling it Phoenix House," she explained to a reporter who'd come to do a story, "for rising from ashes." "And this all started because you saved those girls from the lake?" the reporter asked Ethan. "It started before that," Ethan corrected. "It started when my first wife made me promise to always jump when someone needed help. The lake was just one jump of many." The reporter wanted to focus on the dramatic rescue, the confrontation with Marcus Monroe, the romance between Ethan and Elena. But the real story was quieter. It was Tyler learning to trust again, teaching baby Sarah to stack blocks. It was the twins performing a violin duet at the town festival. It was Lucas getting his driver's license and immediately volunteering to drive elderly neighbors to appointments. "You're building more than a training center," the reporter finally said. "You're building a community." "Communities build themselves," Elena said. "We're just providing a place for it to happen." The grand opening was scheduled for September. Klaus flew in with a delegation from the German firefighting academy he'd secretly been coordinating with. Margaret and William arrived with their checkbook and an unexpected guest, Victoria Monroe, now Victoria Hartley, after taking back her maiden name. "I wanted to contribute," she said simply, handing Elena a check that made her gasp. Marcus's victims deserve something good to come from all that pain. The ceremony itself was simple. No politicians or grand speeches, just Ethan demonstrating rescue techniques while Elena's paintings of first responders decorated the walls. The twins and Lucas gave tours while Tyler, who'd become the unofficial kitten wrangler, kept Sarah and the other young children entertained. "You did it," Tom Richards said, clapping Ethan on the back. "You really pulled it off." "We did it," Ethan corrected, watching Elena explain her paintings to a group of fascinated firefighters. "All of us." The first youth cohort arrived in October, 20 teenagers from across the state, all referred by social services or juvenile courts. Kids on the edge, as Dr. Hendricks called them. Kids who needed someone to jump for them. Tyler had insisted on being a peer mentor, despite technically still being in foster care himself. "I know what they're feeling," he argued. "I can help." Watching him work with a scared 15-year-old girl who'd been caught shoplifting to feed her siblings, Ethan saw Sarah's philosophy in action. When you see someone drowning, you jump. Tyler had learned to jump. Halloween brought its own chaos. The twins decided everyone needed elaborate costumes, and somehow convinced Tyler to dress as a dragon while they were princesses and Lucas was a knight. "I look ridiculous," Tyler complained, but he was smiling. "Ridiculously awesome," Lucas corrected, adjusting his cardboard armor. Sarah toddled around in a bee costume, buzzing at everyone and demanding, "Candy now!" in a tone that brooked no argument. "She's going to rule the world one day," Klaus observed, visiting for the opening of Elena's winter exhibition. "Or at least Wyoming," Ethan agreed. The exhibition was Elena's most ambitious yet, a series capturing the training center's first months, the young faces learning to save lives, the moments of triumph and failure. The centerpiece was a massive canvas showing the lake in all seasons, with ghostly figures beneath the ice transforming into solid forms above. "It's about emergence," Elena explained to the crowd, "about coming up from the depths into the light." Patricia Westbrook had come from Jackson, bringing collectors from both coasts. "These will sell immediately," she said. "But are you sure you want to sell them?" "They're so personal. They need to be in the world," Elena said. "Art hoarded is art wasted." "Speaking of not wasting things," Klaus said, pulling Ethan aside, "I have a proposition." He explained his idea, an exchange program between the Wyoming Center and the German Academy. Young firefighters crossing the Atlantic to learn different techniques, different approaches. "Why?" Ethan asked. "Because isolation kills innovation. Because those kids you're training deserve to see the world. Because..." Klaus paused. "Because you saved my sister and gave me back my family. This is how I repay that debt." "There's no debt." "There's always a debt for love freely given," Klaus said firmly. "The only question is how we pay it forward." The first snow came early that year, catching everyone off guard. The youth cohort was in the middle of ice rescue training when the storm hit, turning practice into reality when a call came in. An elderly couple's car had slid into a pond 3 miles away. Ethan took Tyler and 2 of the older students racing through the whiteout conditions. The car was partially submerged, the couple trapped inside as water rose. "Just like we practiced," Ethan said calmly, though his heart was racing. "Tyler, you're safety officer. Marcus and Jennifer, you're with me." They worked with precision, breaking the window, extracting the couple, getting them to warm safety. The old man was hypothermic but conscious, his wife scared but uninjured. "You saved us," she kept saying. "Those children saved us." "That's what we train for," 17-year-old Marcus said, but his hands were shaking with adrenaline and pride. Back at the center, the other students surrounded them, wanting every detail. Tyler stood a little taller, having coordinated his first real rescue. "How did it feel?" one of the younger students asked. "Terrifying," Tyler admitted. "But also, right, like this is what I'm supposed to do." That evening, Elena found Ethan in the barn, checking on the horses they'd acquired for wilderness rescue training. "Tyler did well today," she said. He did. He's ready. Ready for what? Ethan pulled out a folder he'd been hiding. Adoption papers. If we want. I know we said no more kids after Sarah, but Elena kissed him, cutting off his words. Of course we want him. He's been ours for months. 5 kids, Ethan said, shaking his head. We're insane. Sanely insane, Elena corrected. The best kind. They told Tyler the next day. The whole family gathered in the living room. Dr. Hendricks was there, smiling like she'd known all along this would happen. You want to adopt me? Tyler's voice was barely a whisper. Like permanently? Permanently, Ethan confirmed. If you'll have us. Tyler looked around the room, at Lucas, who'd become the brother he'd never had, at the twins who decorated his room with their art, at baby Sarah, who was currently trying to climb him like a jungle gym, at Elena, who taught him that creating beauty was its own form of rescue. Yes, he said, then louder. Yes! The twins cheered. Lucas punched his shoulder affectionately, and Sarah yelled, "Tie mine," which had become her way of claiming family members. Christmas that year was chaos multiplied. Klaus arrived with presents that required an entire truck to deliver. Margaret and William came bearing educational funds for all 5 children. Victoria sent a letter saying she'd started a foundation for families affected by white-collar crime. But the best moment came Christmas morning when Tyler opened a small box from Ethan and Elena. Inside was a simple silver compass engraved with words, "So you can always find your way home." Tyler didn't cry. He was 15 and too tough for that, but his eyes were suspiciously bright as he hugged them both. "Hey," Lucas said, "want to see something cool?" He led them all outside where it had snowed overnight, covering the world in pristine white. The lake sparkled in the distance, frozen again, but no longer threatening, just part of their landscape, their history. "Look," Lucas said, pointing. In the snow leading from the house to the barn, to the training center, to the road, and back again, were footprints. Dozens of them, all different sizes, crossing and recrossing, creating a map of their daily lives. "We did that," Sophie said wonderingly. "All of us." "It's art," Claire declared. "Life art." "It's family," Elena said softly, one hand on her stomach where, though she hadn't told anyone yet, another little life was growing. Ethan noticed the gesture, recognized it from Sarah's pregnancy. He raised an eyebrow and Elena nodded slightly, smiling. "Another one?" he whispered. "Klaus wants a nephew," she whispered back. "Klaus wants a lot of things. And we want a big family. Looks like everyone wins." As they stood there in the snow, their blended, chaotic, perfect family, the emergency radio Ethan always carried crackled to life. Another accident. Another rescue needed. "I'll go," Tyler said immediately. "We'll all go," Lucas added. "It's Christmas," Ethan started. "When else would people need help more?" Tyler asked, already heading for his coat. And so they went. Not all of them. Sarah was too young, and someone needed to watch her. But Ethan, Tyler, and Lucas in one truck, followed by 3 students from the youth program who'd had nowhere else to go for the holidays. The rescue was straightforward. A family whose car had slid off the road, cold and scared but uninjured. They got them out, warmed up, and on their way. As they drove back, Tyler said quietly, "This is what you meant, isn't it? About jumping. It's not just about the dramatic saves. It's about showing up." "Every time," Ethan agreed. "Even on Christmas. Especially on Christmas." When they got home, Elena had hot chocolate waiting, and the twins were performing what they claimed was the Nutcracker, but looked more like interpretive wrestling. Sarah had chocolate on every visible surface, and Klaus was teaching her German curse words when he thought no one was listening. "This is perfect," Tyler said suddenly. "Really?" Lucas asked. "Even with the chaos?" "Especially with the chaos. Real families are messy." "The messiest," Ethan agreed, catching Elena's eye across the room. That night, after all the children were finally asleep, Tyler in his room with posters of firefighters replacing the band posters he'd arrived with, the twins in their shared space that looked like an art supply store had exploded. Lucas in his room planning engineering projects, Sarah in her crib probably dreaming of world domination. Ethan and Elena stood at their bedroom window. 6 kids, Elena said. We're going to have 6 kids. Sarah would have loved it. She would have. And Robert, he always wanted a big family, but was afraid of disappointing them like his father disappointed him. They're both part of this, Ethan said. Their love prepared us to love bigger. Outside, snow began to fall again, soft and silent. The lake reflected the moonlight, peaceful now, no longer a site of trauma, but of transformation. What are you thinking? Elena asked. About that night. If Lucas hadn't seen those footprints, if I'd been 30 seconds later, if the ice had been slightly thicker or thinner. But he did, you weren't, and it wasn't. Everything happened exactly as it needed to. You really believe that? I believe we make meaning from what happens to us. And the meaning we've made? It's beautiful. From down the hall came a cry, Sarah, awakening from a dream. They both moved toward the door, then stopped, listening. They heard footsteps, Tyler getting up to check on her, his voice soft and patient, singing some pop song as a lullaby. Sarah's cries stopped. He's going to be an amazing firefighter, Elena said. He's already an amazing brother. They went back to bed, but neither slept immediately. Instead, they lay there listening to their house, the old bones creaking in the wind, the furnace humming, one of the twins getting up for water, Lucas's music playing softly from his room despite the late hour. Ethan? Thank you. For what? For jumping. That night and every night since. He pulled her closer. Thank you for letting me catch you. We caught each other. Yeah, he agreed. We did. As sleep finally took them across the property, the training center stood ready for the next cohort of young people who needed to learn that jumping was possible, that rescue could become redemption, that families could be built from the most unexpected pieces. And in the barn, Elena's latest painting sat drying, a portrait of their family at dinner, all 6 children, the baby just a suggestion of light and possibility. Klaus and the grandparents, Dr. Hendricks and Tom Richards, Mrs. Patterson from next door. It was titled simply, Home. The exhibition featuring that painting would open in the spring, coinciding with the training center's first graduation. 20 young people would receive their certificates, Tyler among them as the first graduate of the peer mentorship program. The German exchange students would arrive. Baby number 6 would make his appearance, Klaus would get his nephew after all. And life would continue its beautiful, messy, complicated dance. But all of that was still to come. For now, in the deep Wyoming winter, a family that shouldn't exist slept peacefully in a house built on second chances, their footprints in the snow the only evidence of the miracle that had brought them together. Spring arrived with Elena in her 8th month, moving slowly, but still painting with fierce determination. The German exchange students had arrived 3 weeks early due to a scheduling mix-up, and the house had become a polyglot chaos of English, German, and teenage enthusiasm. Tyler had taken charge of their orientation with a seriousness that made Ethan proud. They need to understand American rescue protocols, Tyler explained over breakfast, while 4 young Germans nodded seriously and Sarah tried to steal bacon from everyone's plates. The differences could cost lives. Or save them, added Friedrich, the eldest of the Germans at 19. Your ice rescue techniques, we have nothing like this in Munich. Klaus, who'd extended his stay to help with the exchange program, translated the more complex discussions. Tyler's right, though. The integration must be seamless. The graduation ceremony was 2 weeks away, and the entire town was preparing. What had started as a simple certificate ceremony had grown into a festival celebrating the training center's first year. Elena's exhibition would open the same weekend, and somehow she'd convinced Patricia Westbrook to bring collectors from New York. You're 8 months pregnant, Ethan reminded her as she stood on a ladder, adjusting a painting's position. And you're being overprotective, Elena shot back, though she let him help her down. This baby's not coming until after the graduation, I promised Tyler. Babies don't keep promises, Margaret said, arriving with another load of flowers for the ceremony. She and William had become fixtures in their lives, driving up from Denver every few weeks. Trust me, I've had to. This one will, Elena said firmly. He knows how important this is. The name had already been decided. Samuel Klaus Cole, honoring both Ethan's father and Elena's brother. Klaus had cried when they told him, though he'd blamed it on allergies. That afternoon, a car arrived that nobody recognized, a rental with California plates. The woman who got out was young, maybe 25, with tired eyes and a baby on her hip. "I'm looking for Tyler Morrison," she said when Ethan answered the door. Tyler appeared from the barn where he'd been training the Germans in ladder rescue. "Yeah." The woman's face crumpled. "Tyler? Oh my God, you look just like him." "Like who?" Tyler's voice was careful, defensive. "Your father." "My brother. I'm your Aunt Jessica." The room went still. Tyler had been told he had no family, that extensive searches had found no one. Yet here stood a woman with his father's eyes and his own stubborn chin. "That's impossible," Tyler said flatly. "They said no family." Jessica shifted the baby, pulling out documents with her free hand. "I was in Afghanistan." Army nurse. "By the time I got back, processed out, found out about David and Marie, you were already in the system. I've been fighting to find you for 6 months." "And now you want me to come with you?" Tyler's voice rose. "Now, when I finally have a home? Jessica looked around, taking in the family that had formed around her nephew. "I don't know what I want. I just knew I had to find you." Elena moved forward, ever the peacemaker despite her advanced pregnancy. "You must be exhausted. Please sit. We have a lot to discuss." The next hours were tense. Jessica told her story. The estrangement from her brother over her military service, their parents' death years earlier, her own struggles as a single mother after the baby's father left. She'd only learned about the accident through a delayed notification from the Army. "I don't want to disrupt your life," she said to Tyler. You're my only family besides Emma here. I needed to know you were okay." "I'm more than okay," Tyler said, his hand finding Ethan's shoulder. "I have a family. A real one." "I can see that." Jessica's eyes were wet. "David would be so grateful. He always worried about Tyler being alone if something happened." "He's never alone," Lucas said firmly. "He's got us." The twins, who'd been uncharacteristically quiet, suddenly burst into action. "You should stay for the graduation," Clara announced. "Tyler's giving a speech," Sophie added, "about second chances." "I am?" Tyler looked panicked. "You are now," Ethan said with a smile. Jessica stayed. Not just for the graduation, but indefinitely, renting a small apartment in town. She didn't try to take Tyler. She recognized what everyone could see, that he'd found his place. Instead, she became part of the extended constellation of family that seemed to grow around the Coles like wildflowers in spring. The morning of graduation dawned clear and bright. Elena woke with a backache but said nothing, not wanting to worry anyone. The house was chaos. Germans practicing their demonstration, the twins arguing about their violin performance, Sarah escaping every attempt to dress her in anything clean. "Where's Tyler?" Ethan asked, noting the empty chair at breakfast. "At the lake," Lucas said. "He goes there every graduation morning. Says it helps him think." Ethan found Tyler sitting on the same shore where it had all begun, though the lake was placid now, reflecting the morning sky. "Nervous?" Ethan asked, sitting beside him. "Terrified. What if I mess up the speech?" "Then you mess up. People will understand." "It's just, a year ago I had nobody. I was nobody. And now you're Tyler Cole, peer mentor, certified junior firefighter, big brother, nephew, son." "Son," Tyler repeated softly. "That's still weird to say. Good weird or bad weird?" "The best weird." He paused. "Do you think my parents would be proud?" "I think they're proud." Present tense. Love doesn't die with the body, Tyler. It just changes form. They walked back together to find the house in controlled chaos. Elena was directing traffic from the couch, her face occasionally tightening in what Ethan recognized as hidden contractions. "Hospital," he said firmly. "After the ceremony." "Elena, after the ceremony." Her tone brooked no argument, and Ethan knew better than to fight that particular battle. The training center was transformed. Banners made by local schools, flowers everywhere, chairs set up for 300 people. The burn tower had been decorated to look less intimidating, and the youth dormitory, Phoenix House, had its doors open for tours. The graduates sat in the front rows, 20 young people who'd arrived broken or lost or angry and were leaving with purpose. Tyler sat with them despite technically being staff now, wearing his dress uniform with pride. Bill Morrison, as training center director, opened the ceremony. 6 months ago, these young people came here looking for direction. What they found was family, purpose, and the knowledge that they have the power to save lives, including their own. One by one, the graduates demonstrated their skills: rope rescue, water rescue, fire suppression, emergency medicine. The German students performed alongside them, showing the international scope of the program. Then it was Tyler's turn to speak. He stood at the podium, hands shaking slightly, and looked out at the crowd. His Aunt Jessica sat with Lucas and the twins, baby Emma, in her arms. His adoptive parents, he still thrilled at the words, sat in the front row, Elena's hand pressed to her back in a way that suggested the baby was definitely coming soon. "A year ago," Tyler began, voice cracking slightly before strengthening, "my parents died. I thought my life was over. I ran from 3 foster homes trying to get back to them, to the place they died, because I thought that's where I belonged, with the dead." The crowd was silent, even the children sensing the gravity of the moment. "Then Dr. Hendricks brought me here, to a family that shouldn't exist. A widowed firefighter and a widowed artist, raising her twins, his son, and eventually me. We're not related by blood, we're barely related by law, but we're family in every way that matters." He talked about the lake, about Ethan's rescue of the twins, about how saving others had saved all of them. He talked about the training center, about learning that courage wasn't the absence of fear, but action in spite of it. "Every person here," he said, gesturing to his fellow graduates, "has a story of loss. But we're here because someone jumped for us. Mr. Cole jumped into a frozen lake." Mrs. Cole opened her home to an angry stranger. "Lucas became my brother when I didn't deserve one. The twins made me laugh when I'd forgotten how. Even baby Sarah, who calls me Ty mine, and means it." Laughter rippled through the crowd, and Sarah yelled, "TY, TY," from Elena's arms. "This place teaches more than firefighting," Tyler continued. "It teaches us that we're all standing on the shore of someone else's frozen lake. The question is, will you jump?" He looked directly at his aunt then, and Jessica was crying openly, understanding that she too had jumped by coming to find him. "So thank you," Tyler concluded, "to everyone who jumped for us. And I promise, we'll spend our lives jumping for others." The standing ovation was immediate and thunderous. Tyler was mobbed by his fellow graduates, and Ethan had to fight through the crowd to reach him for a hug. "Proud of you," he said simply. "Dad," Tyler said urgently, looking past him. "Moms!" Ethan turned to see Elena bent double, Klaus supporting her, a puddle of water at her feet. "Now?" Ethan said. "Really?" "Babies don't wait for convenient times," Elena gasped. "I told you Sarah was the same way." The crowd parted as Ethan half-carried Elena to the truck. "We'll be back," he called. "Continue the ceremony." "Go!" Bill Morrison shouted. "We've got this." The drive to the hospital was a blur of Elena's breathing exercises and Ethan's attempts not to panic. "We've done this before," he kept saying. "Not this fast," Elena gasped. "This baby's in a hurry." They barely made it to the delivery room. Samuel Klaus Cole arrived 15 minutes after they reached the hospital, screaming his displeasure at the bright world, but perfectly healthy. He had Elena's dark hair and what might be Ethan's stubborn chin. "He couldn't wait," Elena laughed through exhausted tears. "Had to make his own dramatic entrance." "Runs in both families," Ethan said, holding his son for the first time. The hospital room quickly filled with family. Lucas and Tyler arrived first, having broken several speed limits. The twins followed with Klaus, and Sarah toddled in demanding to see Baby. "He's so small," Tyler said wonderingly. "You were that small once," Jessica said from the doorway, holding Emma. "David sent me pictures." "Samuel, meet your army," Elena said softly. 5 siblings, an aunt, a cousin, grandparents, and an uncle who's going to spoil you rotten. Only appropriate spoiling, Klaus protested, though he was already pulling out his phone to order things from Germany. Margaret and William arrived with the entire graduation class, who filled the hallway until nurses shooed them out. Friedrich and the other Germans sang something in their language that sounded like a blessing. "This is insane," the head nurse muttered. "This is family," Dr. Hendricks corrected, having arrived with Tom Richards and half the town council. That evening, after everyone had finally left, the core family gathered in Elena's room. The ceremony had continued without them, all 20 graduates receiving their certificates. Tyler had been voted best speaker, and the German exchange had been deemed such a success that they were planning quarterly programs. "We missed my exhibition opening," Elena realized suddenly. "Patricia handled it," Ethan assured her. "Sold every piece in the first hour. Something about the artist giving birth during the ceremony adding to the mystique." "Art collectors are strange," Elena said, adjusting Samuel in her arms. "Says the woman who paints underwater trauma scenes while pregnant," Lucas pointed out. "Fair point." Tyler was quiet, sitting by the window with Sarah on his lap, teaching her to count Samuel's tiny fingers. "You okay?" Ethan asked. "Just thinking. About cycles. My parents died, but Jessica found me. The twins almost died, but you saved them. Your first wives died, but you found each other. Now Samuel's here, starting fresh. It's like life insists on continuing," Elena finished. "Like love finds a way to replicate itself, even through loss." "Or maybe because of it," Tyler said. "Maybe we love harder because we know it can end." For a 15-year-old who'd been angry at the world just a year ago, it was remarkably profound. "Uncle Klaus is crying again," Clara observed. "Allergies," Klaus said gruffly. "In a hospital?" Sophie asked skeptically. "German allergies are very specific." Everyone laughed, even baby Samuel making a sound that Elena insisted was definitely a laugh and not gas. Jessica approached Tyler tentatively. "I know you have a family. I'm not trying to replace that, but maybe Emma could know her cousin? Maybe we could be part of this somehow." Tyler looked at Ethan and Elena, who both nodded. "Family isn't limited," Elena said. "It expands to fill the space available." "Then yeah," Tyler said to Jessica. "Emma should know her cousin. All 6 of them." 7, Klaus corrected. "Friedrich has applied to stay for a full year." "If that's acceptable?" "We'll need a bigger house," Ethan said, but he was smiling. "Or a compound," Lucas suggested. "Like the Kennedy family, but less tragic." "Still pretty tragic," Tyler pointed out. "Dead parents everywhere." "But look what we built from the tragedy," Elena said, gesturing to encompass them all. 3 days later, they brought Samuel home to a house decorated by the twins and the German students. A banner reading, "Welcome Home Samuel," in 3 languages stretched across the porch. The barn cats had been decorated with ribbons by Sarah, who decided they needed to be fancy for her brother. Tyler had moved his things to share with Lucas, giving the nursery back to the baby. "Brothers share," he'd said simply, and Lucas had helped him move without complaint. That night, as Ethan walked the floors with a fussy Samuel, he found Elena in her studio, sketching despite doctor's orders to rest. "You should be in bed." "I had to get this down while it's fresh." She showed him the sketch, the hospital room, crowded with their chaotic family, everyone focused on the tiny new life at the center. "What will you call it?" "The Haven. Like the sanctuary we're building for families in crisis. This is what we're really offering, not just training or emergency placement, but the chance to build something new from whatever pieces you have." Samuel finally settled, and Ethan sat beside Elena, their son between them. Through the window, they could see the training center lit up for night exercises. Tyler was out there, teaching the new cohort that had arrived that morning, kids who reminded him of himself a year ago, angry and lost and certain they were alone. "He's going to be amazing at this," Elena said, watching Tyler demonstrate a rescue hold with patience she wouldn't have thought possible from the boy who'd arrived so bristling with rage. "They all are. Lucas wants to study engineering to design better rescue equipment. The twins are already planning an art therapy program for Phoenix House. Even Sarah's going to run the whole operation by the time she's 10. Probably." Samuel stirred, making the little sounds that suggested he was dreaming. What did newborns dream of? Warmth, probably. Safety milk. The simple things that meant survival. We've come so far from that night at the lake, Elena said softly. Some days it feels like yesterday. Some days it feels like a lifetime ago. Both are true. The next morning brought unexpected visitors. A van pulled up carrying 3 families, parents and children who looked road-weary and hopeful. We heard about this place, one father said, holding a newspaper clipping about the training center. About the youth program, the family support. We've been living in our cars since the factory closed. Someone said you might have room? Elena finished, already calculating space. Always. It wasn't true. They were bursting at the seams, but they'd make room. They always did. Within hours, the community mobilized. The church opened its basement apartment. Tom Richards found temporary work for 2 of the fathers. The training center offered the teenagers positions in the youth program. Mrs. Patterson organized a meal train that would last until the families were settled. This is what we're building, Elena told Patricia Westbrook, who'd stayed to document the community response for an art magazine. Not just a training center or a foster home, but a net. A place where falling doesn't mean failing. It's remarkable, Patricia said, but it all started with one man jumping into a lake. It started before that, Ethan said, overhearing. It started with my first wife telling me that love means action. It started with Elena choosing to run rather than surrender her children. It started with every small act of courage that brought us all here. That evening, they held their first community dinner at Phoenix House. The 3 new families, the German exchange students, Jessica and Emma, the graduates who'd stayed to help teach, Dr. Hendricks, Tom Richards, Bill Morrison, Margaret and William, over 50 people sharing food and stories. Tyler stood to make an announcement. Jessica and I have been talking. She's a nurse, and we need medical staff for the training center. So she's staying, permanently. The cheer that went up could probably be heard at the lake. Jessica blushed furiously while Emma clapped without understanding why. Also, Tyler continued, grinning now, Friedrich's been accepted to the University of Wyoming. He'll be studying emergency medicine while helping with the exchange program. More cheers. Friedrich stood and bowed formally, very German, which made everyone laugh. Any other announcements? Elena asked dryly. Perhaps Sarah has something to share? Baby! Sarah shouted, pointing at Samuel, which wasn't an announcement but made everyone laugh anyway. Later, much later, after dishes were done and children were in bed and the house was finally quiet, except for Samuel's occasional hungry cries, Ethan and Elena stood on their porch watching the stars. We're going to need that compound Lucas mentioned, Elena said. At this rate, we'll have the whole town living with us by Christmas. Would that be so bad? No, it would be chaos, but the good kind. Is there a good kind of chaos? Elena gestured at their house, the training center, the barn studio, the garden plots already being planned for the new families. This kind, the kind that grows from love instead of fear. A cry came from inside, not Samuel this time, but Sarah, who'd had a nightmare. They heard footsteps, Tyler getting up to comfort her like he did most nights, singing that same pop song that had become her favorite lullaby. He's 17 next month, Ethan said. We should do something special. He wants to go to the lake, to where you saved the twins. He says it's where the family really began. That's either really healthy or really morbid. Both, probably, like most of life. They went inside to find Tyler walking the halls with Sarah, who was fighting sleep with every fiber of her 3-year-old being. He looked up as they approached. Sorry if we woke you. We were up, Ethan said. Want me to take her? Nah, I've got her. She's almost out. Tyler continued his circuit, and sure enough, Sarah's eyes were fluttering closed. Tyler, Elena said suddenly, you know we're proud of you, right? Not for the speeches or the grades or the helping, just for being you. Tyler stopped walking, clearly fighting emotion. Yeah, I know. It's the first time I've known that, really known it. Good, because we're about to ask you to help with night feedings for Samuel, and we want you to know it's from love, not exploitation. Tyler laughed quietly, careful not to wake Sarah. I figured. Lucas already warned me. He says it's a rite of passage. Lucas is wise beyond his years. We all are, Tyler said, resuming his walk. That's what happens when you rebuild from ruins. You age fast, but you understand things, like how precious this is, how unlikely, how worth protecting. As if in agreement, Samuel began to cry. Elena went to nurse him while Ethan helped Tyler get Sarah back to bed. The house settled into its nighttime rhythm, the creaking of old wood, the whisper of wind through gaps they'd never quite sealed, the occasional cat complaint from the barn. In the morning, there would be more chaos. The new families would need help with paperwork. The German students had a demonstration planned. Elena had 3 commissions to work on. The training center's second graduation class would arrive. Jessica would start her first day as medical coordinator. Life would continue its relentless forward motion. But for now, in the deep Wyoming night, a family that had assembled itself from loss and love, from ice water rescue and fierce protection, from German art students and foster teenagers and grandparents learning to grandparent again, rested. On the wall of the hallway, barely visible in the nightlight's glow, hung Elena's first painting of the lake. Dark water, fragile ice, 2 small figures suspended between drowning and rescue. Beside it hung her newest work. The same lake in summer, children playing on its shores, families picnicking, the water reflecting not danger but possibility. The transformation was complete, but transformation, they'd learned, was never really complete. It just kept going, each change leading to another, each rescue creating ripples that became waves that became tides of change in lives they'd never even know they'd touched. Tomorrow, Tyler would blow out 17 candles on a cake the twins insisted on decorating. Klaus would announce he was funding a sister program in Munich. Jessica would save her first life at the training center, a student who'd gone into anaphylactic shock. The new families would find their footing. Samuel would smile his first real smile, not gasp, but genuine joy at seeing his mother's face. All of that was still to come, waiting in tomorrow's promise. But it all started here, in this moment, in this house, with this impossible, improbable, absolutely perfect family who'd learned the most important lesson of all. When you see someone drowning, you jump. And sometimes in jumping, you discover you're not saving them, you're saving each other.